Interestingly enough, yesterday, what we spoke about this in the morning when we looked at the cases in Tanzania being solid at 299. By lunchtime, there was a report, and we saw that, okay, things have actually changed. In the last 4 days, Tanzania jumped from 299 to 480 cases. And this was in 3 days. So yes, testing clearly is going on in Tanzania. However, the jump is something to be considered in terms of how fast it actually happened. So now they have 480 cases. So we're looking at a jump of 81 cases that they've been able to find over the last 3 days. They say that testing is now ongoing, and unfortunately, they have 16 deaths, whereas they had 10 before.
I think what would be important to see with Tanzania is the number of tests done. All right.
And per day.
Yes, because even if it's in the last 14 days or overall, have they tested more people than the other countries around?
Well, they've been quiet, but clearly what has been happening in this silence is that they've been working in the background. Exactly. Testing has been going on. We don't know exactly how much, but it's clear from the results that we see, whereby we thought that they were being quiet, it actually was not the case. So now if you want to look at other countries where numbers have not changed either, in Rwanda, 225 cases. So an up from 3 cases yesterday, what we saw. Still no deaths. Okay? And then if we want to come down and look at Uganda, 81 cases. So 2 more cases that they found, because yesterday they were at 79. Testing is still going on in Uganda. The lockdown is still being adhered to strictly. Nobody's flouting or would be flouting the rules. So those still remain the same. But then this jump was significant in Tanzania, but it's also indicative of a fact that testing is going on.
And the recoveries also had risen from 48 to 167 people.
Yes.
Right? 167 have recovered, 36 in Zanzibar, 83 on the mainland. But I think there are people who are saying, oh, you see, Tanzania is now looking like it's a crazy case. But I think it's just showing that they're working in the background.
Yeah.
They're just saying, all right, let's continue with our life as normal. But they're testing. The Ministry of Health there is not just asleep. It's not saying, okay, you continue with life, we'll wait for you to come to hospital. And
we're not going to give you this information every single day. We're going to give it to you when it comes to us, and that's how we're going to decide to disseminate it. But for now, this is what we're dealing with. So.
In fact, Tanzania provides us with a very interesting scenario.
Yeah.
It provides us with that alternate perspective and that alternate way of dealing with COVID. So it gives you an opportunity to compare. They are not following what everybody else has been following.
Yeah.
And we're looking at the results. And the results do not look unfavorable if you were to go simply by what we've seen in other countries. There are those who will argue that it's early days yet. It's always early days with something that's new. You come up with something, you get some results, they're new, the next day something else comes. New days are every day with COVID.
Every day is a new day.
Every day is a new day with COVID. Yes.
Okay. Huge numbers again. So...
Yes.
Globally.
Okay, so
USA,
let's look at the numbers.
Spain, usual suspects.
The usual suspects. Yes, numbers still climbing, and significantly so, amid calls for the release of measures like lockdowns and say, okay, let's not make it so stringent. But the United States is at 1,064,572 cases, with an additional 1,378 cases yesterday alone. Deaths have now crossed officially 60,000, so with 61,669 deaths in the United States. The numbers continue to climb significantly in the US. In Spain, 236,899 with 24,000 deaths. Italy at 203,591 with 27,000 deaths. France with 166,240 with 24,000 deaths. The UK, 165,221 with 26,000 deaths. And in Germany, 161,539 with 6,467 deaths. Russia, we've not really looked at, but they have almost 100,000 cases with almost 1,000 deaths. So 99,399 with 972 deaths in Russia. China still has not crossed 82,000 shillings, clearly. I'm looking at the front
Right.
page of the Standard. 82,862,000
I like
cases.
The shillings thing.
Yeah?
Carry on the shillings.
All right. With 4,633 deaths. That's what we're looking at in China.
So China is 82,000 cases.
Yes.
With how many deaths?
With 4,000.
4,000.
Yes, deaths.
All right. So those who argue around the world that China has basically suppressed their numbers big time.
It could be that they're in the millions, according to the conspiracy
You
You
theory.
know,
see, where the
conspiracy
conspiracy actually stems from is that when you have authoritarian states, they are known to really edit their information. They will give information that portrays them in a positive light. They are not known to go around just letting information flow freely, especially if it may paint them in what they consider negative light.
Yeah.
So if you take this as a perspective, the reality is that even governments that are not authoritarian will not always give you information that does not paint them in a positive light. They won't.
They will not. Nobody is going to do that.
No one does it.
The country with the longest contiguous border with China, Russia, has just 1,000 deaths
Yeah, with almost,
and 100,000 cases.
So they are managing their information. All countries do this. What's for sure, by the time they're telling you they have 1,000 cases, open your mind and think. All right? You see, if we look at other countries, we will criticize them easily and there'll be information that will support our criticism. But we ourselves have been found guilty of that as a country. Not too long ago, we had a family and people who were dying. Remember how the numbers kept playing ping pong?
Yeah.
Oh, there's this. No, it's not this. Yes, it's this. No, it's this. Hey, it continued. Then we had Corona. Yes, we have the isolation centers ready. Yes, Bagathi, KNH, ready.
But they're ready.
We have equipment ready. Hey, a month went by before you could actually see this readiness in reality. So
Then they were launched.
then they were launched. And then you asked,
3
okay,
months after they were ready.
after they were ready. And then with the launch, you ask the question, okay, now that we've launched, can we see these places again? It's only when we had people who were actually in there talking to us that we actually began to have an idea of what was actually happening. The issue of PPEs, even to date, they have been bought. To date. You're not really sure what has been bought and what hasn't been bought.
Yeah, and where it's going.
Yes.
We're coming to 21 minutes after 6 as we go to this weather break CT. Start us off with today's proverb.
If your only tool is a hammer, you will see, this one is really, really funny, every problem as a nail.
Yeah.
Yes. If your only tool is a hammer, you will see every problem as a nail. It's a Gambian saying.
You just want to hammer it.
Well, that's the tool.
The only way to deal with this.
Eviscerate the thing.
Kabisa. Meaning knock this thing senseless.
Or pull it out.
Or speak the living daylights out of it.
22 minutes after 6. This is a situation with Kenya's biggest conversation. Shortly, we'll be taking a look at the newspaper headlines. Good morning.
.24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
It's a mostly cloudy morning in Nairobi. The sun will peek through in a short while. At 16 degrees, we will see rain showers though later with highs of 23 and lows of 15. In Nyeri at 16 degrees, it's cloudy conditions all through, and the chances of rain are very high for early this morning. Highs of 23 then through the day. At 16 degrees, Nakuru is mostly cloudy, and the rain will make a debut very early as well, with highs of 24. In Eldoret at 13 degrees, it's cloudy conditions all the way through. We're going to see showers there through most of the afternoon and then into the early evening. It's going to cool down though. Highs are going to go not higher than 21 degrees and lows of 13. 20 degrees in Kisumu and mostly cloudy this morning. Chances of rain also quite high with highs of 27 and lows of 19. Malindi, light rain showers already going on here at 26 degrees. We'll see highs of 29 and lows of 25. The rain likely to carry in through most of today. It's cloudy in Mombasa. The rain hasn't started yet but promises to very soon. Highs of 28 and lows of 26 today. Take a look then into Kampala where it's mostly cloudy at 21 degrees. Showers expected with a high of 24 and lows of 20. Dar es Salaam is cloudy at 24 degrees. We'll see thunderstorms later with highs of 29 and lows of 24. It's 7 degrees in Johannesburg and the sun is coming out. It will be very sunny today all through with highs of 18 and keeping it cool at lows of 7. Lagos at 27 degrees will be clear skies all through with a few clouds here and there, but we'll have highs of 33 and lows of 25. Taking a look at New York, it's nighttime at 11 degrees. It'll be cloudy all through. When the sun does come up, it'll be covered by rain showers throughout, highs of 13 and lows of 10. It'll soon be sunrise in Paris at 10 degrees. It'll be clear skies for now, but thunderstorms warnings still remain at yellow with highs of 16 and lows of 9. And finally for now in London at 7 degrees, it'll be clear skies all through, but thunderstorms and showers expected for later with highs of 12 and lows of 7.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads. You're listening to Spice FM.
What I have, man, the interesting things here. Inside Safaricom,
Mature, intelligent,
101 billion cash cow. COVID-19 isn't bad for everybody. That is how I conclude it. And then there is the issue of parties tell of Ruto, man, over coalition talks, usual politics. The other two I'm not going to bother with. I'm not.
Okay.
No disrespect, it's just that I'm not going to bother with it. It's a headline that if you want to read, please. If you want to interpret, please interpret as you see fit. The big biggie here is where Corona millions went. This one we can discuss later in greater detail.
So let's start with the Safaricom. Kenya's most profitable company reported 101 billion shillings profits before tax in 2019, earning 12.5 million every hour and 300 million daily, driven by M-Pesa, Fuliza, and data services. So every hour between the time we started and 7 o'clock, 12.5 million shillings into Safaricom. By the time we are through with this show, 12.5 times 4. They'll have made that much.
Consider, on page 4, they actually give you a lovely breakdown
of where the money is coming from.
Yes, essentially they're telling you, this is how it works out. Mobile data comprises 40.7 B, as in a billion, okay? M-Pesa, 84.4 billion, as in income coming in. Incoming, not outgoing. Voice.
Not how much we've transferred, how much they've made from our transfers.
Thank you very much. Here, in your pesa, 94.5. Then you have SMS. This one doesn't really do very well. Just a paltry 17.2 billion. Okay. Then when you do the maths, 1 plus 1, this one equals 251.2 billion Kenyan shillings.
Wow.
Nice, isn't it? But the really nice thing is the government earns a huge chunk from this. Yes. When I tell the government has money, I know what I'm saying. It has money.
Get some dividends, some
Baba,
cash.
they first of all there's tax. The government actually taxes you for all these things.
Yep.
Now, if we actually go into this thing, you will realize that the biggest beneficiary in terms of direct income, as in shareholder, government, tax, government.
So we keep talking about banks and how much banks are making colossal amounts of money.
Hey man,
So let's look at the profits announced by these 4 banks in this the last financial year. KCB, Equity, Cooperative and Standard Chartered. All right? Put their profit together, blah, 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 blah.
Safaricom.
Add 70 billion shillings.
On top.
That's where you'll get to Safaricom. Safaricom is 70 billion shillings more profitable than those 4 combined.
And do you know why? Safaricom meets the needs of those who subscribe to its product.
Yeah.
People,
High and low end.
yes, people don't
Across the
complain.
board.
It does it for you.
Yeah.
This service that you're supposed to take to the banks that should add up to giving the banks profits, they have surrendered to Safaricom. Safaricom caters for the most basic of needs that the subscriber has. So now you're going to tell me that you don't want to focus on what the customer needs, and you're going to be telling us these stories of what you've done. You're going to be telling us about you have expenses, and you're going to be telling us how you're letting go of people, and you're still making those huge profits.
And it's interesting that you say that, CT, because if you want to talk about a value-added service, a VAS magician, here it is in Safaricom, because their core business is not what is making them these huge amounts of money.
No.
You yourself told us that SMS paltry 17 billion in compared to M-Pesa, which is a value-added service for Safaricom. 84
billion.
The service that they're giving Kenyans, which Kenyans need, is the one that's actually making them money.
Yep.
People need to talk.
Yep.
And they're allowing you to talk. And they're enabling you to talk. They're even offering you freebies. They offer you so many things.
Talk so much, or even giving you free on top of it.
Exactly. Now, 94.5 billion.
That's some good cash. So
That is lovely.
the Standard has actually broken down what Safaricom profits can buy. All right?
These are lovely people.
If we just took this money, 6 million COVID-19 test kits of the brand approved for home-based used, costing 12,000 shillings a unit. This cash from Safaricom, the profit by Safaricom can buy 6 million of them. This money can buy 144,000 ventilators, each costing 500,000 shillings. It can finance 27 kilometers of Kenya's most expensive highway, the Dongokundu Highway, or 2 45-kilometer thicker superhighways with 8 billion left over in change. Can do thicker superhighway, 8 billion, mwenda mkakunywe chai.
Yes. Na mkule snacks.
Ununue rawa.
Vitamu.
Yeah. It can support 7 ministries combined for at least 3 months of this financial year. This is Lands, Public Works, the Presidency, Correctional Services, Immigration and Citizen Services, Devolution, and the Development of ASALs. Those 7, Safaricom can finance them for 3 months. Kujeni.
If you wanted to teach an economics class, value addition, this one.
This is it.
Value addition.
Mnajua Safaricom? The answer will be chorus. Yes. Okay.
What does Safaricom do?
Teacher,
voice.
you'll be told.
Call.
Every child knows.
Yep.
You know, the longest time, there used to be matatus that used to they would emanate from Thika. Direct. And they were Nissans. When I say direct, I mean direct. Thika, it stops in Nairobi. My friend, you'd be compressed. By the time you got out of that particular matatu, you needed 5 minutes just to get...
Unfold yourself.
Yes, and to get things flowing. But even when the other huge manufacturer called Toyota came in, and they had their own vans plying that route, they all called Nissans. Nissan now became the generic name for any matatu.
Public service vehicle.
Yes, that carries supposed to carry 14 people. Nissan.
It was a Nissan.
Now, you will find, someone will tell you, I want Safaricom. Safaricom apana, ile Airtel.
Ile ingine ya Safaricom.
Ile ingine ya Safaricom.
Eh,
Now, and why? Because what they say they're going to provide, they provide. Those Nissans didn't promise you comfort.
They said they'll get you there.
But they got you there
they filled up fast,
very fast, and they got you there.
and then they got you there.
And they were reliable, and you knew the time. Comfort was a secondary issue. And with the time, if you apply that route often enough, you knew how to sit. This car square,
Came
believe
from
me, yes, you lean forward, you lean backward. You lean forward, you lean backward. And you suddenly find there was space, oddly enough.
You know, in those days, there used to be somebody who's employed to basically ensure that people car square.
Yes, everyone.
When the matatu parks up, there's a guy who just
That's the job. Kidogo, move. Kidogo,
he
okay,
moves
kidogo,
from the back
from the back.
all the way to the front, and then now there's space.
You'd be amazed.
For the
at
next
space.
stage, there's space.
There's
More
space for
people.
somebody just to come in. And then you're told you bend a little lower.
Ingia hapa katikati.
Oh my God.
And it worked.
No, wewe ni mdogo toka kwanza na wewe ingia
Yeah,
pale.
ingia
Sasa
hapa.
wewe ingia hapa. Those fellows were logisticians of the highest possible order.
Oh, yes.
That's hilarious. Oh my goodness.
Now, real time example.
Wow. Okay.
You have Safaricom telling you how to car square.
And it shows you how. It became it became basically a lifestyle company.
Yes, it is.
When Bob Collymore, the late Bob Collymore, was doing those adverts and saying, tuko nawe kila wakati. He
Man,
meant
those-
it.
You knew what he was saying.
that ad is real.
Tuko nawe kila wakati.
In fact,
Wherever you are.
And they should have added popote.
These guys are brilliant. You know, they started now. The new was it's for you, and this was before COVID. For you.
And you can
Where is
see
it
the for you.
You can see the for you, my friend.
They've been there for you.
Strategies.
24 minutes to
Brilliant.
7 o'clock. Let's take a look at the situation on the roads and then come back to the headlines. Good morning.
All right, Boyakiwe is looking very, very good today. No vehicles, but for some reason there's traffic. I don't understand. Outbound. Outbound. There's some traffic. I don't know where people are going this morning, but inbound, absolutely nothing, not going on. All right, let's look at now something a little bit more disturbing. At the pipeline stage, there's been a grisly accident this morning. I'm not sure of any casualties right now, but emergency services are at the scene and trying to sort that out. But just be careful to approach with caution. It's probably likely to affect traffic moving in all different directions, in and out, just because of that. That's around the pipeline stage. So, guys, we need you to be very careful about that. Coming off of Mombasa Road, a little bit of a hold up at Cabanas. It'll take you through to General Motors and right behind the ICD road that's also still being constructed, but once you get past that you should be fine. Other parts of the city looking pretty good. Coming out of Thika, no traffic at all. Thika Road rather, no traffic at all. Jogo Road is moving very well at the moment, trying to get you then to the City Stadium roundabout and then into the CBD. It's looking good, not much of a problem now. In case you do see something before we do, Spice FM KE and we can warn others about it so that we can keep it moving this Thursday morning.
to 7, we're taking a look at the newspaper headlines. Remember, you can download the Standard newspaper app.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
The Standard newspaper on its digital form, from wherever you are in the world.
Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Cost Safaricom 1.9 billion shillings. Right? 1.9 billion shillings that they could have made, that they had projected. You know, we can make 1.9 billion from this betting and, you know, the kind of money that we make from the transactions. 1.9 B, which they could have made, but
this isolation, quarantine, talk time has made up for that.
That's the one thing that you know people are doing.
Yep, the next financial year is going to have
Pretty
some
good
very
for
good
them.
numbers, especially for data.
Yeah.
especially for data. It's going to be looking very, very good.
I mean,
So-
because of all that we see with Zoom and this, that, the other thing. So
People at home, people, using all manner of need for data. Other headlines.
Okay, 133,657 people have lost their jobs. This is on the front page of the Daily Nation.
Sister, round it off to
134,000.
134,000.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, the
Trying to
one
be
is
specific.
225 and
Point 4. You don't like it? No? Okay.
0.4 per person.
They're there. I'm telling you.
Eh?
So,
Who counted?
don't worry, wait now. An uncertain time for families as breadwinners lose their sources of livelihood in the face of a depressed economy. All right. Now, that story is on page 2, and what it talks about is that Kenyans are worried lot as the virus causes these number of job losses. The reality of the toll that COVID-19 is taking on the economy is only beginning to hit home. The revelations are in a report tabled before a parliamentary committee Tuesday, and they show that the pandemic continues to ravage companies by strangling their revenue streams. The most affected sectors are transport, aviation, hospitality and tourism, manufacturing, wholesale and trade, agriculture and the informal sector. The report prepared by the Ministry of Labour and Social Protection indicates that all the 133,657 lost jobs so far are in the formal sector, and the number excludes employees on unpaid leave and those who have taken pay cuts.
Bas.
So these are people who have lost their jobs.
Yep, and
right?
in the formal sector.
In the formal sector, not
This
even
is
informal.
the ministry basically just asking companies, just
Yeah.
report to us. Or unions, tell us who lost jobs.
Right? So
Because this number is very low. 133,000 people, telling me 133,000 people have lost jobs.
you see it's much higher than that.
It's much
Infinitely.
higher.
It's much higher than
much higher than that.
Okay, so the majority of those affected, the document says, are in the manufacturing sector and those others that we've talked about. One of the pillars of Jubilee administration's Big Four agenda, which we like so much, Eric, where 500 workers have been laid off. According to that, the security sector has sent home 300 workers. The numbers are likely to rise because most companies are yet to notify the ministry on redundancies as required under the Employment Act 2017.
So we see the source of
yes.
this information.
You get it now?
Company declares redundancy, a company has to file with the ministry.
Yes, it
so
does.
that's the only place that they've gotten this data from. Very many other companies have not
given
reported.
their
When you're
information.
told that a company has reduced its productivity by 70%, what do you think that is telling you?
Yep.
Even if it's by
Workforce has gone
10%,
home.
People have gone home.
they have gone home. And what we don't even know is the terms and conditions under which they have been told to go home. The only company that we are clear about is Kenya Airways.
Yeah.
Clarity.
Yep.
Other places,
Where we know that people have been sent on leave,
yes.
partial unpaid, partial paid. You see? Very many companies have sent people on unpaid leave.
Yes. And those
So
numbers
those ones
are
are
not
not being
included here.
They cannot be here
No.
because these are redundancies. So you haven't been declared redundant. You've just been told, you just go on unpaid leave until the situation normalizes.
What also will happen is that this is where some of the rogue elements in our society will come to the fore. Where somebody uses this opportunity now to shortchange their workers so that they can keep some money.
Yeah.
And it's a perfect playing field for them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Yeah. So the report on the job losses comes just 4 days after President Uhuru Kenyatta signed into law the 2020 tax amendment bill that directed, among other measures, that employers are barred from sacking their workers or forcing them to take pay cuts during the COVID-19 pandemic. So had it been done before, would we have seen less numbers? This is the question. The National Assembly's Finance and National Planning Committee recommended that employers struggling to pay salaries due to drastic drops in revenue streams can only grant unpaid leave days to their staff during the period of the pandemic.
So no more declaration of redundancy.
Right? No more sacking of staff.
You think.
In the black and
So that's
white,
the thing.
in the edict.
I don't have to declare you redundant. I'll basically just tell you, go on leave. It's unpaid leave. You still have a job. And then at that point, when situations normalize,
I will let you know.
I'll let you know. So you can wait. You can be on unpaid leave for a very
For a
long
while.
time. So as long as you've lost an income, 133,000 people, that is not the true situation on the ground. Unfortunately, here the ministry, and we can't fault the ministry because the ministry is saying this is the actual hard data that we have.
Yes.
And this is what they're presenting. Going beyond that, maybe KNBS can gather more data from other. They know how to gather data. The Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. They can give us more information.
Right.
Hey, all right. This Harambee of ours, the Harambee for COVID-19, has received a boost of 1.1 billion shillings from Equity Foundation and the MasterCard Foundation. 300 million shillings coming from one person or one family.
From
James Mwangi's family.
yeah.
Equity Bank Group CEO, who's also a member of this Harambee committee, said that we are donating 300 million shillings just from them to go and help this. And then 1.1 billion shot in the arm from Equity Group Foundation with the support from the MasterCard Foundation. Now, this is where I think we need to have these guys, Kina James Mwangi, Jane Karuku, and the rest, in addressing us and telling us, this is how much we've received, and this is how much we've spent so far, and what we're doing with it. Because, as you know, we have issues of money going. We don't know where it's going. We now are talking about people donating Harambees, and especially Harambee. People are very, very near about Harambees. You collect money, you have to account for
it. Where did it go? For sure.
One of the things that this board was, being praised for is because it's comprised of people who are from the private sector, and that therefore we can talk about accountability. So they need to come out openly and clearly and regularly and tell us, this is what we've done. We piloted giving money to people. We sent this money to these people. We are rolling out the rest to countrywide in this particular manner. Without that, there's a lot of
the situation where silence is actually a very good ally in that it gives you room to maneuver and sort of like come out and speak when you need to. But this isn't one of those times. This is a time when you actually need to speak.
Yeah.
Because if deeds are followed by words, then what you do is you build on the public confidence. People feel something is happening. People feel we can get help. Essentially what you're doing is you are extending this concept of hope and making it a reality.
Yes.
This is what we need in such times, hope.
It's very crucial.
Yes.
It's crucial at this point. When the Harambee was set up, remember it was after a lot of agitation from the people. We need social protection. We need a social protection net for the population, the vulnerable, those who are affected. Many people are affected. Many other organizations are already trying to assist in distribution of relief, coming up with their own individual relief efforts, which the government tried to clamp down and say we must have it coordinated, which is a good thing in my opinion. But this being the forefront organization that is taking a lead in relief efforts, there should not be this kind of opacity. I feel like I don't get to know what. I mean, it's
what are they doing? Committee. There's money coming in, but
how much have they received? I have to go to their website every day to see. Okay, so how much have they have today, and then I'll tell you how much they have. I'll just continue talking. I'll tell you because I have to go to the Kenya COVID Fund website. And I'll tell you how
there's
much.
a problem here, you see. I don't doubt that the committee is doing everything within their capacity to ensure that the mandate is fulfilled.
Yep.
This mandate has to be seen to be fulfilled, not heard to be fulfilled.
Or assumed to be fulfilled.
No, we must see. It doesn't matter how small the effort is, we must see.
As of yesterday, they had 1.28. They had received 1.28 billion shillings. All right? They're still at 1.28.
This is inclusive of Mwangi's?
No. They're still at 1.28. I think Mwangi's was declared yesterday. They still haven't formally received it, so they have not added it.
That arithmetic takes how many days to add?
I don't know. Maybe
they have to receive it before
they can put it there. Mwangi are announcing in their office. We are going to give them 1.1 billion.
Yeah, but they have not received it.
So these guys have not received it. So let's just assume that this Mwangi's money comes in. So it's going to be 2.3 billion shillings in this fund. 2.3B is good enough money to already be offering a lot of support to the population. We should be hearing a lot more. Anyway, other headlines.
All right, so the UN agency warns of more locust swarms. This is a story that you might want to swat it away, but in this case, you're not going to be able to.
Can't gas it.
No, swat it, gas it, can't. Reality check, my friend. They're coming. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, first generation of Kenyan insects are ready to breed.
Homegrown.
We have our own insects.
Yes, now it's a Kenyan swarm. It's not imported.
So these are citizens.
These ones are Kenyan.
You know, anyone born within the boundaries of the Republic of Kenya is
And
an
they are not
automatic
even-
citizen.
And
this
they're not
one you
even
want to keep
claiming
them.
dual citizenship.
No. These ones, their fathers migrated, mothers laid them. The first generation of desert locusts in Kenya has matured and is ready to breed. Desert locusts normally mature and start laying eggs from 2 to 4 months. This means that the first generation of locusts bred in the counties of Samburu, Isiolo, Wajir, Mandera, and Marsabit could begin mass breeding, not even small, mass. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, in an update dated the 28th of April, have warned that the current situation in East Africa remains extremely alarming as more swarms from the mature in northern and central Kenya and in Ethiopia. A new generation of breeding is underway in Kenya, where more eggs will hatch and form hopper bands during May, which is where we're entering tomorrow, followed by new swarms in late June and July. They started talking about June and July in January. All right, which concluded with the start of harvesting. Samburu Special Programs Chief Officer Daniel Lesegior noted that most swarms in Samburu have already reached maturity and mass breeding could start if they are not sprayed. So there's a solution. If they are sprayed, this mass breeding will not happen.
If they're sprayed.
If they are sprayed.
The challenge is now also is with the spraying. Where is the spray coming from?
It has to be imported.
It has to be imported.
And they were trying to find it in Australia in February. And they were trying to import it from Australia in February, but they couldn't find it.
Import the spray.
Import the spray, the stuff, the liquid.
The
that they
companies
needed.
Why
are
were they
making
trying
this.
to find it?
Because it was not available in Kenya.
There's a shortage of that.
There's a shortage.
Even at that
No,
point,
no.
it was a reported shortage.
I haven't made my position clear. That it's not available, I understand clearly. Either it's in Australia or it isn't. And if it is not in Australia, it must be somewhere else. So what do you mean you're trying to find it? Were they playing hide and seek?
I'm here today.
It's in the black market.
What is it?
They did get a connection.
There are people who manufacture these things. And they will tell you they manufacture it because it's a business and they plan to sell it. What do you mean they were trying to find it?
Do you want to change your words? Ndu?
No, I'm just telling you what they said. I'm just, in this case, I'm being a reporter. I am reporting to you what. Now, this is the thing. Now, moving, I understand this. I'm not even an insect. What did you call those people?
Which
Those ones.
Those ones who study insects.
Insecticiologists.
Yeah.
Or they're not insecticides.
Before the breeds have matured, they're on the ground. They're not hoppers. They're not hopper bands.
Yep.
So at that point, you needed ground spraying. You know, we started talking some time back and we said that ground spraying is what was necessary. Now, these swarms have matured and they're flying.
Yep.
That's why you need aerial spraying at this point.
Yep.
Before they now come and land on the ground, because the minute they land, they're doing what?
They're hatching.
They're
laying
laying their eggs. Then you now go to ground spraying again because it's a cycle, this thing. So it is at this point that everybody has accepted that we need aerial spraying to start now. It needs to start now. The problem is, though, that we know the problem, we know the solution, but then in moving forward, it's a challenge. We're not able to do it.
It's a difficulty in getting this solution unless we find ways. Now that we are finding all homegrown solutions, maybe just go to some of these
But they're saying
companies
the problem
locally
now,
and see, can you manufacture some concoction that can deal with locusts locally? Because we are saying, okay, from the international market where you ordinarily get this, you're not getting. There's absolutely no way somebody who has this in stock somewhere and knows that you need it would not be willing to sell it to you. It just shows that there's something that's happening. There's a shortage.
Well, they need to move quickly
There's a
because it's
logistical challenge.
FAO continues to note that the desert locusts can travel up to 150 kilometers in a day and they can eat their own body weight in greenery, meaning a swarm, just 1 kilometer square, can eat as much food as 35,000 people can consume in a day.
It's going to be a tough one. This
Yes.
one is going to be a tough one. Matters of stigma and COVID-19. We've discussed this many times. On page 10 of the Standard this morning, as the country continues to report more recoveries, gains are being derailed by the refusal of families and community to take patients back. And this was being addressed yesterday by the CAS for Health, Dr. Mercy Mwangangi, in her briefing yesterday. She talked about the need for us to embrace those that are recovering and reintegrate them back into the society and community. And this is not happening. There's a lot of stigmatization. We've accused the government of being the leader in spreading stigmatization about COVID-19. But now the government is raising concerns of a stigma that recovered COVID-19 patients are facing in the community. Not just those that are recovering, even people who are coming from quarantine.
Yeah.
The lady who's been serialized on the Nation for a while talks about receiving the same. People who have come out of quarantine, going back home, corona, avoid them. Stigma is a big thing. Villagers are shunning a family after health officials buried their kin. The family of a man who was hurriedly buried by county health officials in protective gear at a village in Lari area of Kiambu County have complained about the stigma that they are facing from fellow villagers. A double cab pickup with 6 men, all in white aprons and facial masks, drove to Nyambari village yesterday to bury David Kamau, who was suspected to have died of COVID-19 on April 26th. They went to the gravesite without any ceremony, quickly lowered the coffin that was covered with a black polythene bag. The men did not want to be helped, even in lowering the coffin, were reduced to spectators. This is according to a brother to the deceased. The team then fumigated the whole compound, instructed the family not to go near the grave. The sight of the men riding the double cab in white protective gear sent shockwaves in the entire village. Now nobody wants to visit.
Isn't it reminiscent of what happened in Sierra?
Same thing.
I think these guys decide to come at night.
Yeah.
And yet, this destigmatization process could have begun by simply ensuring that people are isolated in their homes. Because people would be seeing them every day. All these myths and misconceptions running through their mind would have been diffused.
Yep.
15 days past, they're just as alive as they were when they started.
Yeah.
And the tests are known to be negative. Once that becomes the norm, people will not even be afraid to get tested. But so long as it's under this particular cloud, people will not be tested.
Can you imagine the word going around? You know, the pickup came, those guys wearing those masks. They're the ones who took the body. He was not even in a coffin. He was in a black polythene bag. They're the ones who dug the grave. They lowered the body. They covered the grave. And then they sprayed the entire compound.
COVID-19 now has become a death sentence.
So that compound has COVID-19. Avoid it as much as possible. This is now the sad reality of what we are facing. And it's being mishandled by the same government, the Ministry of Health. That's how they're mishandling it.
Unfortunately.
Even the national government coordination, they're mishandling it. Because the chief could even just go around and explain to people, this is what has happened. So-and-so, as you understand, so-and-so died, so-and-so had tested positive, died out of COVID-19 complications. He's going to be buried here. This is how it's going to take place.
It would have been easier if these individuals were involved from the very beginning.
Yeah.
We're talking about community workers that, the community are known to them. They know who these people are. So they would have been able to help in this kind of messaging. From the very beginning, I mean, what you're saying, spreading
Even
those
before
particular
all that,
before all of this started, they should
just
have been involved in the
continuously
process.
explain COVID.
to people.
Yes.
What this means.
So when it happens, you don't rush. You say, that COVID we spoke to you about.
This is it.
This is
This
it.
is what's happening.
And this is what we're doing. Believe me, it will get rid of all the myths. You see, this stigma is fueled by myths and misconceptions. People have an idea and their own explanation as to what is happening. That's what you need to remove. So they understand the reality. This is what you may be thinking. But the reality is actually this. So long as you don't demystify what they believe, then whatever they think is going to take center stage.
This family will not recover out of this.
Man,
for a very
man,
long
man.
time. For
They
a very
may
long
even need
time.
to move.
You cannot even go to the market to buy anything. Nobody's going to sell you.
Already you're wearing the
You
scarlet
can't go
letter.
to the shop.
Yeah,
Eric,
you're
do you
wearing the
remember
scarlet letter
one of our callers was talking to us about this small kiosk where she normally buys her fruits when she's doing her running and what have you.
And simply because she wore a mask.
That's it. There was a problem. People wanted to lynch her. People want to harm her.
Yep.
Because she's wearing a mask.
Because you're wearing a mask. Why would you let a COVID upper?
Now, when you actually have
Top
it,
of the hour, City. Today's proverb.
If your only tool is a hammer, you will see every problem as a nail.
Okay. If your only tool is a hammer, you'll see every problem as a nail. This is a Guinean proverb.
This is a Gambian.
It's a Gambian proverb.
Gambia.
All right.
Gambia. Not Guinea.
Not Guinea. It's Gambia.
Gambia,
Okay.
yes.
It's a G.
Yes.
Good morning. It's 7 o'clock.
It hasn't really changed much. We still see a little bit of that hold up right around Mombasa Road today at Cabanas, leading you then down towards General Motors. But after that, it is really okay getting into the CBD. Yesterday, we saw pockets of traffic all around. It looks like that has changed significantly today, right around the same time. Not much of an issue wherever it is that you look. If there is, we'll be sure to let you know. But for now, traffic will not be any of your problems this morning. Spice of MKE, remember, on Twitter, let us know what you see. We'll spread the word.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times.
Let's talk money, all right?
Nigerian
COVID-19
Kenyan
in numbers. We are fighting COVID-19. And so we're looking at money that has come in and how that money has been spent. Just to tell you that in the next hour, 8 to 9, we'll also be speaking to two envoys. One is the European Union Ambassador to Kenya, Simon Mordew, and the other one is the Denmark Ambassador to Kenya, Mette Knudsen. They'll be speaking to us from 8 to 9. We'll be talking about the support that we're receiving from the European Union, from Denmark, and what this money is supposed to be going for, and how else that Denmark has helped the country. And then, 9 to 10, we'll go back to our conversation from yesterday. This is about the fallout and standoff between parents and private schools over school fees. We'll be speaking to the CEO of the Kenya Private Schools Association. We'll be speaking to the parents,
the National Parents
Association chairman. We'll also be speaking to opposition leader now because let's call him opposition leader Musalia Mudavadi. He'll also be joining us. So gonna be interesting conversations. Let's start with this one. CT headline in. On the Standard this morning and the headline
where corona millions went, meaning news reaching our very busy desk at this particular moment informs us that the state has spent 1.3
habari za hivi punde
punde si punde before punde has become punde. The state has spent 1.3 billion of the money received from the World Bank to fight in the fight against COVID-19. Notable expenditures include 278 million Kenya shillings on PPEs, 70 million on communication, as in telephone, blah, blah, blah. 42 million on leasing ambulances, excellent. 12 million to house health workers, and 4 million for tea and snacks. That is the expenditure as we've been told now. But of course, these expenditures keep going up because these activities mentioned here are ongoing activities.
Yep.
So every single day, the numbers keep
are rising,
increasing. Yes.
So this is basically looking at money that came from the World Bank, 1 billion shillings donated by the World Bank for the COVID-19 emergency response in Kenya, and how it has been spent. This is a breakdown provided by the Ministry of Health. Leasing of 15 ambulances. Initial approved proposal was 42 million shillings. So far, we've spent 42 million shillings. We have leased ambulances, 15 ambulances for 42 million shillings. Ndu calculator ready, 42 million divided by 15. How much per ambulance?
Okay, so that is 2.12 million per ambulance.
Over what period of time?
Hold on.
We've only had COVID since March, mid-March.
Yes, so I want to know over what period of time, then we're going to work it out per day.
Mid-March.
Wait.
I'm waiting. 42, 000, 000.
So it's 2.8 million per ambulance.
So far.
Yes.
So let's work backwards. How long
Should we said 15 ambulance?
Yes. How long have we had COVID? 15. How long have we had COVID?
In Kenya?
Yes.
For about 9
Since
weeks.
Friday the 13th
9 weeks.
of March.
That is 7 times 9.
63.
Yes. So divide that by 63.
Mm-hmm.
Ding, 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 ding. 44,444.
Per day.
Wait, on ambulances.
44,000 shillings. Why are we leasing 15
shillings.
ambulances? From who?
For what?
Okay, we can say for what, but from whom? From whom are we leasing these ambulances?
They're being leased.
The
Yes.
people who have that capacity of ambulances.
Red Cross.
Yes.
So, but why are we leasing ambulances from the Red
Because
Cross?
we don't have the
All right.
ambulances within our
So-
public system.
So
we're actually
when
leasing them.
so I get it. So here's how we're using the ambulances. When somebody tests COVID-19 positive, they are transferred from one facility to the next, in
next.
an ambulance.
Or from their home.
From their
to-
home,
Yeah.
ambulance. When people are being transported from home to quarantine facility because of contact tracing,
Yeah.
get into an ambulance and go.
Yes.
So this is where now we're saying we need ambulances.
Yes. And also there'll be ambulances on standby.
Yeah. So
And if it's on
some-
standby, it's paid for.
and it's also on
Oh, it's
paid.
okay. Yes.
Yeah.
You've already
listed.
taken. Yes.
Because it's the costs. E-Plus services is actually a business from the Red Cross.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing.
Hey.
4,000 per day.
44
Hey,
44,000.
Eric,
44,000.
Please.
I was saying dollars.
Oh, okay. That's 400,000.
No, that's 400,000. Okay, 44,000 bob per day. Okay, calculator ready?
Yes.
Amount initially approved 13.5 million, but amount spent, and this is what we need now, is 12 million shillings. Accommodation of 30 healthcare workers needing quarantine services for 90 days.
Okay. 12 million.
We have not gone to 90 days.
You said 12 million.
12 million shillings.
Divided
30 healthcare workers.
Divided by
30.
30. So that is 400,000 per healthcare worker. Divided by 90. So you're looking at
But
4,000.
which 90 days are we talking about? We are going back to the same number. How many days did we have again?
You said
9.7.
63.
No, they initially had said 90 days.
Okay, but it's actually 63
They had
days.
budgeted this for 90 days. They have consumed it within those 60 days.
Divided
It's
by
allowable,
30.
by the way.
So it's 400,000.
You
divided
can
by
estimate,
63.
and then the
So it's
reality proves to be
6,300
different.
per day.
Okay, so who are these 30 healthcare workers who've been quarantined?
And only 30.
No, why are we this is quarantine.
I understand.
Explain the quarantine of healthcare
May I
workers.
even
That-
what I'm asking is why is there a cost for quarantining them if they're already within health facilities? Because they work within health facilities, and we're assuming that these are people who've tested COVID positive.
Not isolation.
And why
quarantine.
it's quarantine? And why are they paying?
No. I am going there. You see, when you talk about quarantine, you must talk about isolation also in the same breath. Remember the complaints that health workers had regarding this very same matter?
Yes.
So I am asking the question, can they explain and they tell us what it is that they're paying this money for?
So
Why this
basically,
amount?
let's assume this, all right? So these people have not, the healthcare workers have not tested positive, so they have not gone into isolation and treatment. This is basically quarantine. Remember the clinic in Ngara, where somebody came and then they tested positive? Healthcare workers were taken into quarantine. So those are the ones we are talking about. Such healthcare workers taken into quarantine. Initially, when patient 0 went to hospital, she came into contact with healthcare workers. Those were also taken into quarantine. So over time, we have seen 30 healthcare workers going into quarantine, and the cost of quarantining them is what now we're saying. We have spent 12 million shillings to quarantine them.
Okay.
Over 63 days.
This gives us
Each of them is costing how much again? 6,000.
6,300.
6,300.
Okay. We now have at least an indication of what it costs to quarantine someone, isn't it? Okay. And if we broke it down,
We
what
know it costs 2,000 bob at KMTC.
yes, it does.
This is 6,000 bob.
I am going
don't know
there.
where.
Where have they been quarantined?
I don't know where.
Unfortunately, this information raises more questions than it does answers. Because we have to ask these questions. If this is what it costs, break down the cost for us and tell us what this expenditure is all about.
The interesting bits here, and those are the ones that people see on social media and they furore arises. Teas and snacks for varied teams. What has been earmarked? Initially approved proposal is 10 million shillings. Consumed so far 4 million shillings. Teas and snacks.
Okay. You know what?
So why are people... Okay, so is there an issue with tea and snacks for 4 million shillings?
It just seems like a frivolous expense when it comes to when you want to put it against everything else that is being done here. And the very fact that it had to have been budgeted for, realizing, oh, okay, our stomachs need some kind of help.
This is not
point,
lunch.
Right?
It's tea and
exactly.
it's
This
snacks,
is just tea and snacks.
Mm.
So it seemed like quite a high number, or rather quite a high amount when it came to something like tea and snacks.
Let's not just look at the figure of 4 million.
What was budgeted was 10 million.
Yes, but
Yeah.
no. For how many people?
They just said several
various
teams. Various teams.
That doesn't cut it. How many people?
They said various teams. A
And
team
where-
could be 2.
And where are they being catered? Because initially, whichever institution already had a budget for catering.
And we've been talking about this budget for the longest time.
Yeah, for the longest time. So if you're talking about teas and snacks, maybe in the war room at the Health Ministry Afya House, where now this National Emergency Response Committee meets, maybe when they're meeting, they have tea and snacks because they don't sleep. See, they keep telling us that. They're working overnight. So they're taking a lot of coffee.
If you're working overnight, you're going to become ineffective.
The task force
they
is
must
also
go and sleep at some point.
working very long hours. So they're also getting the teas and snacks and mandazi, just kula some mandazi, kula samosa kidogo. It's important.
Eric, I'm not saying it's not important.
It's only 4 million.
I am asking these numbers, these cohorts of people, how many are they? Because the real cost is in how much each individual is being allocated for these snacks. And then we'll query what sort of snacks are these.
What snacks?
Exactly.
What snacks are these? Stationery, printing paper, toner, etc. 6.5 million.
Okay.
And that is different from printing of travelers' forms, quarantine forms, and discharge forms, which is 9 million.
They're different how?
Quarantine forms. These are forms.
Forms are forms,
These
man.
are forms. Printing paper is printing paper.
Yes, toner is toner.
Toner
What?
is toner. Now, the difference is form and toner and paper. So this is how I understand it. Printing of travelers' forms. So when they're arriving at JKIA, they were filling forms. So yeah, when they're going into the quarantine facilities, they're also filling forms. When they're being discharged, they are forms. So those ones, kando. Dealing with the people in quarantine. The stationery printing papers and toners are in the offices and in the facilities. So if it's at Mbagathi,
They're budgeted for.
it's at Mbagathi, it's at the ministry, KNH, wherever, this special
Eric, every year they're
budget
budgeted
this.
for.
Now there's an increase, there's an added need, so they got an extra vote of 6 million.
Eric, you
Gone in 30 days. By the way, we're talking about 30 days here. Gone.
Eric,
Gone.
let's go back to the numbers, shall we? How many people How many people do we have who have been tested in this country?
As of yesterday,
No, you don't even need to. It's rhetorical.
Okay.
How many people are in quarantine? How many people are in isolation? How many people have tested positive? Those numbers, you can jiggle it, you can scratch it, you can do what you like with it. Those numbers will not warrant that amount.
that
to
amount
this
of
point.
money,
That
absolutely
you talk
not.
about for paper, what have you?
No,
it won't.
It won't. Even if we want to go back to this tea, and I say frivolous, how many people are drinking the tea?
People drink tea every day in those places, for heaven's sake.
And these teams are special teams that need to be drinking a different tea from the one that they're drinking tomorrow. The problem with this is that you can't say that we're giving you a sheet of how we spent money, and then within that sheet you're being as vague as you possibly can. Especially with things like where you see it's just 4 million shillings here.
Just
it's
4
just
million.
another 9 million shillings here. Nobody's really going to take notice. They take notice. Especially when you say that money has come in and it's supposed to be fighting a certain thing, and it's that, then you can't really place it here or there. Papers printed, what for? What for? Tea drank? How
Shall we go
much?
into what is it that is most important in fighting COVID-19? Let's go into PPEs, okay? So PPEs, 277 million shillings has been spent for the purchase of PPEs. Lab equipment, 330 million shillings. Test kits, 196 million shillings. Other equipment, this is coming from KEMSA, 98 million shillings and 160 million shillings. Assorted PPEs, there's PPEs and there's assorted PPEs, 58 million shillings. And then those are it. Procure and install call center for grievances and complaints. This is the call center has costed us 11.8 million shillings.
Hold on. Which call center?
See,
The one where you call 719?
Yeah.
It's not independent. It's not an independent call center.
So it's housed at NASCOP. It was already in existence. Procure and install a call center for grievances and complaints management. This, written in brackets, is a mandatory safeguard requirement by the World Bank. Okay?
Because you said it costs 18 million?
So World Bank had said this one you must put aside 11.8 million shillings for this.
All right.
You must spend it.
Okay.
You have it at NASCOP, it's okay. Maybe here we're talking about because you've increased the number of...
at NASCOP, what is it exactly?
Maybe we're talking about because you've increased the number of... Although this is procure and install a call center. So it's not payment of staff. It's not anything like that. So it's 11.8 million shillings. Those items that I've read there are what sound like the direct management of COVID-19. The rest is administrative stuff. Accommodation, airtime, fuel and maintenance, teas and snacks, stationery, communication, printing of travelers' forms, all that is admin. Admin has eaten so much money.
Yeah.
And then there's handling and delivery fee for UNICEF. 20% of this money is being is 20% handling and delivery fees for UNICEF.
Delivery of what?
Handling and delivery.
Of what?
See, handling and delivery.
Of what? What are you handling and delivering?
See, it's 20%.
You see, this is a problem.
What Eric is telling you, UNICEF will charge you.
For
handling and delivery.
Of?
At 20%.
See, there's something you're handling and delivering.
11.6 million shillings.
Remember
See, this money.
I understand. I get
the
it.
money.
I understand.
This money that has come from the World Bank is going through the UNICEF and then
In order to get it across, and then they'll
take,
charge you for
they
it. They'll
take
take
a
some
fifth.
of it.
A fifth of that money just for handling and delivery. Those are jokes.
You know this airtime thing that they speak of here? If you have 2 million shillings to spend on airtime, Safaricom will give you a discount.
Of course they will. You probably have, by the time you're spending that amount of money, you'll
I mean,
have
you
an
have
account.
spoken.
You'll have an account with them, and
You'll
there's
have
many
spoken
things that
until
they'll
you're
give you.
tired, and you won't have finished it.
So they're saying they have allocated how much per person? 4,000 bob per month for 500 staff.
4,000 shillings of airtime is a lot.
It's a lot of airtime for 500 staff.
And then they give you some of those rates of theirs which cost you next to nothing if you speak on. Man, you will speak.
4,000 bob a month, all right?
Yes, so what they're telling us here is that you're given 4,000, you first of all go into bundles, which is not what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Then you share with your relatives, which is not what you're supposed to do.
You send them airtime.
Then you give your children, so you actually end up with 500. Then you come and tell us, it isn't enough.
Airtime in Maisha.
But City, if you were to allocate money to, say, a public health officer who's in charge of one of the quarantine facilities, how much would you?
I don't know actually how much I would because
Dr. Muga, you're in charge of
yes, but how much
KMTC and the other quarantine facility, right? You need to be getting in touch with the headquarters. You need to be sending information on. You're the one who's managing the WhatsApp group for all these people, so you need to be constantly on data. How much would you allocate?
Eric, I don't know how much I would allocate. Let me start by telling you this: if someone is in a government facility, those facilities already have telephone lines. You don't really need a handheld facility for you to be able to speak. Number one. Number two, what you're doing is adding to what has already been budgeted and allocated for. Adding to. It's not that it didn't exist. You're adding to it. Then let's come to the nitty-gritty. Everything that you need to do, you're going to go through probably the most versatile service provider. That will be Safaricom, isn't it? Even if you do not ask for the discount, they will tell you, given these numbers, we are going to give you this discount because they also know you're dealing with the government.
You can actually even get into a program with them and say, these numbers, we want to for you to provide a service to this particular numbers.
Yes, we want you to isolate and we want you to target these numbers. There's so much you can do. That's what I was telling you, I don't know.
And we'd like them to have access to data. We'd like them to have access to airtime to call.
That is what they will do. And we also want you to tell us how this thing is used, because there's a record of how it is used. It's there.
You can create a package and say, so all these workers, the 500 workers that we need to keep communicating with one another.
These are their numbers.
These are the numbers. And this is what they need. They need data. They need to be, someone can't just tell you, sikuwa na data, sikuwa na bundles. That's why I was not communicating to the people at the quarantine.
Eric, what they will do, if I may just add life to what you're saying, they will ensure that they've even worked out how much you actually spend before
they give you the allocation.
So when they give it to you, they know they'll remove what you normally spend and then say this is what you need to spend for the work. Eric, this thing is a science. It is not something complicated.
So, are we justified in scrutinizing this report of how they spent
We
the
haven't
money?
even begun, if you ask
So we
me.
haven't started. We're just
Not
looking
really.
at the numbers.
You're
and
just
what
looking
they-
at the numbers
We're just looking
first.
at the numbers and what they present. All right. Well, you keep looking.
Just
Before
the
we
numbers from the
we've
top.
not opened our mouth yet. Okay.
Procure and install call centers for grievances, complaint management, blah, blah, blah. We already have this.
11.8 million shillings.
We already have
I was
this.
going to creating this call center.
We already have it.
Then
already
there
there's
is
a-
already provide, yes.
communication at 70 million shillings. What's communication at 70 million shillings? Because it's not airtime. It's
What's
what is-
communication?
What's
Let's start there.
communication? Is it the bill? What is it? The billboards?
Which billboard did you see?
This is
Commercial
what,
COVID.
This is
You haven't
what
seen
happens
commercial
Okay, the
COVID.
commercial one.
when you
uh-huh.
allocate something this seriously to an officer who's used to doing business as usual. This is how they do their things. And then the real gist of it comes at the end when they're telling you that the final funds used were 1.3,
Billion.
yes, 305. And what was actually proposed and allocated was 976. That's where the math comes in. So you're wondering,
They
okay,
even overspent.
by 400 million.
Yeah.
How do you make a? How do you oversee?
It's justified.
How do you jump? For the overspending of 4 million is justified.
Yeah,
Hey, Danny,
it's written here.
400 million.
Sorry, 400 million justification of that overspending is evident.
Yeah. PPEs are expensive.
Tea
Communication.
prices of milk have gone up.
Yeah, prices of milk has gone up.
Cows cost more.
Sugar.
Cows are stressed. They're not
21
used to
minutes
milk.
after 7. Let's take a look at the weather.
We'll have partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi today, 17 degrees, and we'll see rain today, that's for sure. Highs of 23 and lows of 15. In Nyeri at 17 degrees, it is cloudy all through, and it's going to give way to rain very soon. Highs of 22 and lows of 16. Nakuru at 16 degrees is mostly cloudy. We'll see rain showers early on at 24 degrees the high and lows of 14. Eldoret at 14 degrees is very cloudy this morning, and that'll open the curtains to rain with highs of 21 and lows of 13. At 20 degrees, it's already raining showers in Kisumu. We'll see highs of 26 and lows of 19 with thunderstorms in the afternoon. Malindi is cloudy at 26 degrees. Rain showers later on with highs of 29 and lows of 20. Mombasa is partly cloudy. That won't last long though. Rain showers coming in very early as well with highs of 28 and lows of 25. In Kampala, it's 21 degrees and partly cloudy. We will see rain as well later. Highs of 24 and lows of 20. Dar es Salaam is raining this morning at 24 degrees. We'll see highs of 29 and lows of 24. And the rain is likely to carry out through the entire day. In Johannesburg at 7 degrees, it's clear skies. We will see highs of 18 and lows of 6. It's a warm morning in Lagos at 27 degrees. Highs of 32 and lows of 26 with partly cloudy conditions all through.
Sugar and spices every day, night. Oh yeah.
24 minutes after 7 o'clock. So
Spice
now
up
you want
your
to
life.
get deep into the details of what has been spent so far?
Mature,
Just
intelligent
reporting
talk
some
every
of the
morning.
Not
Spice
much.
up yourself.
Just 1.3 billion shillings in
There are some
60
that I
days.
am
In,
concerned about.
in less than 2 months.
The people who made the mistake of giving us these numbers do not know that they have actually opened up the underbelly of this ministry completely for us to see. Because you give us these figures, no breakdown, just figures. This is what they're accustomed to doing. And this is the reason why funders have been removing money from MOH, because they do this sort of thing. And somehow you're just supposed to lap it and accept it. So we've given the figures.
So first of all, these figures were given to Parliament, right? And then in the abridged version, they go like this in the table. Maybe there was a detailed breakdown of each item.
I'm talking about what I see here.
And you don't expect that the newspaper is going to now give an entire breakdown of leasing of 15 ambulances.
Yes, I do.
The newspaper.
Yes, I do.
You're sick as yet. Kama unataka information unapata huko kwingine.
You see,
We're just going to give you the information as it is. So the further details and all would come in later when the issue is being discussed by Parliament or by the auditor.
So
When
this
the auditor is
so there's
looking.
no problem here.
When
You
the
should
auditor
just-
is looking.
So now these figures that have been thrown at you, sounds breakdown. You shouldn't have a problem. You should just assume that the numbers in terms of crunching would have been delivered. So it's not a problem, Eric. Is that what you're saying?
No.
But you're saying that you for later.
No.
Perhaps they have the details.
what I'm saying
and for
is-
later, when it comes to
What I'm
discussion
saying
in
is
Parliament,
I'm saying
they'll have
that
the details.
CT should not jump to faulting the ministry officials and saying that they presented the figures this way. We don't know whether this is how the figures were presented from the ministry to Parliament.
actually,
Probably there was a complete breakdown, right? And
you are
this-
talking about probabilities,
this
Eric,
is
and me, I'm
what
talking
is
about
being-
what I'm seeing.
This is what is being reported
Eric-
by a third party of a story that has happened in Parliament. It is
Eric.
not a verbatim the report itself. If you are seeing the report itself, CT, from the ministry and telling me this is a report from the ministry and I am looking at it and my God, it's blank now there.
You
See
do
what
have
I'm
a
saying?
point there, Eric. You do have a valid point. But unfortunately, where I sit, in such matters, the ministry is guilty until proven innocent.
Based on historical experience.
You start from there.
You're
Start
guilty.
from there.
Then prove you're innocent.
How has it
This
been done in the
dilly-dallying
past?
that we
Is it going
have,
to change because it's
You're
COVID?
telling us that the cost of a PPE is not even recyclable. You're telling us, man, these stories, if this was the first time we were hearing this, Eric, it would be the first time. We had a problem when we were dealing with matters of blood donation. The story went this way. The funders, PEPFAR, had told us a year in advance that they were not going to fund us. Somehow, we did not make sure that in a timely fashion, this matter was brought before Parliament so that money could be allocated.
Even when they reminded us 4 times in a year.
Yes. When this funding came to an end, suddenly there was a whole host of people you could not employ because they were being paid by the funder. Suddenly, there was a situation where people who had been employed to run ambulances, to run the machines that you need to configure the blood properties. Suddenly, that came to an end. Suddenly, the reagents that you required for this came to an end because the funder had been funding all this. In short, suddenly, even the machines that you use for calibrating these things also could not function because the people who actually ran them could not be employed because money had run out. Which ministry? Ministry of Health. We then go further back into history and we bought these MES. We bought this equipment for which the counties are paying 200 million shillings.
We leased it.
Thank you for the
We
correction.
leased it.
200 million every year. A lot of this equipment, some of which were portable equipment it's like mobile clinics rotting away in Madare Hospital. These things were bought during the time of a certain Mr. Macharia, who was then CS. Okay? People have questioned whether they were viable, but what has come out is they did not consult the relevant counties.
They didn't
They
do
just
the due
went and
diligence.
bought, allocated it between 3 organizations, and they
NGOs are
bought.
not involved.
Yes. So, against this background, if I come out and say they are guilty, I have every reason to say because they have given me no other reason to think or to say something which is different.
Otherwise,
What we cannot say that is incorrect. This has been reported in more than one publication. This was taken to Parliament, and this is the breakdown. 1.3 billion shillings has been spent. In that 1.3 billion shillings, 42 million shillings has been spent on leasing 15 ambulances. Now, the details of how much each ambulance is, where it is, it has been leased from, maybe it's in the other report. But we can question 15 ambulances we've leased, and we've spent 42 million shillings, and yet. This was at a point when we had one case, 2 cases. Now we're at 300 cases. Within that, we have spent 42 million shillings on ambulances. What happens if our numbers shoot to 1,000?
the
How
ambulances
much are we
alone,
going to spend
on
on
ambulances
ambulances alone? What happens when we start using the other quarantine facilities across the country and isolation centers across the country? How much is it going to cost us to have printing and teas and samosas and sausages? How much is it going to cost?
Why we left out chapatis?
Chapati is not considered a snack. Hiyo ni chakula. Hiyo ni chakula. Snack ni, those two small two things. Sambusa mbili.
Okay.
Which are not in themselves very filling.
Keki.
Yes.
And then they start bringing
Yes,
sweet vegetable roll. For those ones now who are uko high up in the 7th floor of Afia House.
And who are vegetarian.
And who are
In daylight.
Yeah. How much more are we going to spend? If we can spend 1.3 billion shillings in such a short time, how much are we going to spend? If we are given another 1 billion shillings by the World Bank or by whoever, a billion shillings,
More snacks.
we're basically saying that by this time next month,
We would have spent.
It's gone.
It's finished. It's done. Unfortunately, when this is why it's necessary then to have that further breakdown so we can understand exactly, and then if it's justifiable what it has been spent on. Look, if we're talking about 30, if you want to take it further down the road, 30 health workers having been quarantined over 60 days, right? And they spent 12 million shillings.
not all 30 were in quarantine for 6 days.
Exactly.
No.
With the few of those 30 that were in
Yes.
quarantine,
How many days did
each stay in quarantine? But
14.
whatever happened,
Let's just say that none of them flouted. So let's just say 14
days.
14 days per health worker.
they spent 12 million.
30
bob.
days times 14 days. In fact, let's calculate it that way.
30 times what
30
now?
workers times 14 days each. How many days? Then divide that
48.
from that.
That's 420.
Okay, so 12 million divided by 420.
Lovely figures, huh?
28,571 shillings.
Per day.
Yes.
Yeah. And then...
And then you're told that
and then
quarantine
you
is
wonder
2,000
why I say
shillings.
they're guilty until proven innocent.
Do you see? The math doesn't even make sense.
Look,
28,000 shillings is what one person would
Yeah.
pay,
Do you know
and
what-
government
Because
requires
logically,
quarantine for
Quarantine
14
is
days.
14 days.
Yes.
There's
Yes,
no
14
way you
days.
have quarantined somebody for 60 days.
No,
we
and
haven't.
this,
and
and
as-
then
as-
they're
as
paying,
yet
and
we
then they're
haven't.
paying
Even right now,
28,000.
as yet, there's nobody who's been quarantined for
Even those that have been punished over and over and
before
slapped.
they jumped the wall.
Yeah.
Even these fellows. Ask yourself this simple question: do you really think that if the detailed explanation I'm speaking was provided, I wouldn't ask these questions?
That's the thing. This is the thing.
Because I would say, oh, this
unfortunately,
is how you've done it.
it's easy to just put some slapstick figure on a piece of paper and assume that people are not going to ask questions. Because people asking questions, then you realize, hold on a minute, we've been told certain things all along, right? People have said it's 2,000, 3,000 bob to be in a quarantine center. For 14 days, you end up paying, between 28 to 30,000 shillings, right?
Yes.
Then you come out and then they say the figure. Then you say, oh, okay, hold on a minute. Let me get my trusty calculator. Then you find out that these health workers that they're talking about where they quarantine, they're spending 28,000 shillings per day.
Per day.
Where are they? The Hilton? Are you kidding me? What are we doing?
That jokes.
Serious ones. This is where the money is going. Dr. Mercy Korea alluded to the fact that there's already some hanky-panky going on in terms of where this money is going and how it's being used. It's being hidden in these quarantine beds. It's being hidden in a cup of tea with milk and samosas. It's being hidden in an ambulance somewhere. And you can infer already and make an assumption that the money is already disappearing even before the work has been done. What possible justification, even if we say, you're already being too much, let them at least tell you where they spent it, okay. What possible justification are you going to give for 28,000 shillings per day being spent on one person in government quarantine? What? 28,000? What do they do? What are they doing?
70 million shillings for communication.
Ask yourself also this very.
So here's the thing. We keep hearing this ad for COVID-19, right? COVID-19 is an infectious disease that affects it, and it runs on all media houses, on TV and radio. So the truth of the matter is that media houses are running this ad for free. But then let's put in a cost for production and say it was produced by a certain production company that was paid. That ad, it's a 45-second ad.
It's a voiceover, put it
It's
on
a
top of a
voiceover,
bed. For
yes.
those who understand production,
Not much.
It's not a long
Let's
production.
even go into the ones that we see, the TVCs that we see with several celebrities coming to tell us about washing hands and all. That's another production. let's put money into that production. 70 million shillings cannot go into production
Nope.
of adverts.
How much?
70 million.
70 million.
All right.
Because what other communication are we talking
What
about?
are the communication? Billboards. All right. So we can say billboards. What else are we saying? Where else is this money going? Are we talking about communication between Mutahi Kagwe and Eugene Wamalo? What?
Phone. No, phone. They already said they gave airtime. Sorry. That one doesn't happen.
And then there is now 4,000 bob per month for healthcare workers. How many months have we had? 1 month. Okay, now let's actually go into those details again. Calculator ready, Ndu?
Yes.
4,000 per month. So let's say it's 1 month.
Yes.
Okay. 500 staff. That's 2 million.
That's 2 million.
All right. So 2 million shillings spent already giving airtime to 500 staff.
Yes. They've already talked 2 million, Bob.
Ask yourself a simple question.
500 members of staff.
We've understood
Who
all
are these
this.
and where are they?
How many people do we have in isolation? How many people do we have in quarantine? I thought that if someone was in a government facility, some of this money was supposed to assist. Or did I get it wrong? Where is the budget for these things? Because not everybody, even hospitals know, and that's why they have a social department
Yeah.
which deals with people who are unable to pay. It's understood. There will be people who will not be able to pay. So where is this money? These people, they pick up after 7 and say, you as a punishment so that iwe funzo. Let it be a lesson for people who idiotically think like you. Stay there. Now, if someone can't pay, they can't pay. A cost has been incurred. I would have assumed that there is a budget line for such
That
things.
can cater for such.
Yes, there has to be a budget line to cater for those. You don't see it.
There are people actually who are in quarantine, and we know this for a fact because they've told us, they've called us and told us they were in quarantine and they did not pay. In some of these facilities, KMTC and
Yes.
all, that they did not pay. That money is not here. That means it's in another budget line somewhere.
And somebody's
Some money
claiming
that has
that it
come
was
from
spent.
somewhere
But it's hanging around
it's already
somewhere.
gone. So it's not part of this 1.3 billion shillings that has been spent.
So what is it part of? We have to also ask
So
that
what is
question.
this 1.3 billion shillings? What are we spending it on? 37 minutes after 7 o'clock. It's a situation. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's take a look at traffic, the situation on the roads, and how much is being spent per person per day per car.
Okay, so whoever's erecting the footbridge on Thika Road needs to get it done, right, and move, because even when there is no traffic, there's traffic. And because of that, the roadworks that continue on Thika Road, recarpeting this, that, the other thing, it's a mess, guys. And so this is affecting traffic a little bit. Mweki, we still have problems there. The road is in a deplorable state, and because of that, the cars are moving very slowly, and there's spillover to Thika Road. So you want to know that's going to take you a good, healthy minute before you can get off there really quickly. Remember, people are being asked to wear their masks in public. Protect yourself and others. You never know what the situation it may be. There's still COVID, guys, even though people are not talking about it. The guys at the roadblock, right the further down Mombasa Road, right around Daystar, doing their job. The hold-up is because people are checking if anybody is going out or coming in and should not be. That's what's causing that. You'll get out of it soon enough. Nothing major happening in other parts of the city or other parts of the country for that matter. If it does, we'll let you know. Spice FM KE, you tell us as well.
Sugar and spice and everything nice.
21 to 8. This is the situation. This is the biggest conversation. In the room, we have Eric Latif, CT Muga, and Nduoko. We are taking a look at where our billions have gone, not millions. Agencies are fighting to control these billions. This is the headline in the nation. Basically, it's talking about, so this money, part of the reasons why you're seeing a lot of back and forth is because there's infighting between the National Influenza Center and the Kenya Medical Research Institute.
Now, when you're saying there's infighting, is it so that they can control the money so that they can then apply it to the specific projects or initiatives that they're working on centered around COVID? Or is it to make sure that some individuals at some place can pocket this money? Those are two different things.
My feeling is that we're talking about the entrepreneurs, the mafia that are associated with these organizations, basically fighting so they can control this money. When money is allocated to this particular organization, then I have a leeway. I will supply. What do you guys need? You need paper. I'll supply the paper. I'll supply the equipment. We need to purchase this equipment that costs 15 million shillings or 150 million shillings. I'm the one who's going to bring it. So these are entrepreneurs pulling each on their own end and finding where can we make this money. This is the big issue.
You know, when you look at these figures, you know, these don't even take into account the various groups in this country who have selflessly given towards this, helping what we call Nyumba ya Wazee, help in their own small way. They don't get publicity, but there are very many groups in this country that are doing all sorts of things for people. Now, what we're seeing is without these other figures. Remember, we talked about the underbelly of our nation and of our souls being brought to bear in the glaring light of day. This is it. This isn't something that started with COVID. This is what's been happening. When people are this careless in giving figures that they haven't thought through, you ask a question, no one will give you a direct answer because this is how they used to doing things. They just slap figures against things.
And the bottom line is that they are allocating money to some budgets, to some budget items. This becomes a vote, and you can therefore now go and draw from that vote.
Yes.
And say, you know what?
And they're used to this.
We've bought airtime. 500 people, airtime, 4,000 bob. It's very easy to play around with that figure.
Oh, absolutely. And this is the thing. They're used to talking to people in this manner. They're used to presenting budgets like this, whether it is to donors, whether it is to government at large, on a county, sub-county, on a national level. This is what they're used to. So you're not asking them to do anything different when it comes to this. It is necessary you have to explain to detail. When you don't tell people absolutely yes, we do. Because you got down to the detail when you were asking for this money from the World Bank. When the World Bank then presented this money to you, you opened your hands and said, thank you very much. Now, at least we can go 3-4 steps in front and fight COVID. Now, when it comes to how it was spent, 1 month didn't finish and the money has already been used. The money has been used. It has been used completely. In some cases, the budget lines have been overshot, been overspent. And then you don't want to tell Kenyans how you spent the money. You don't want to justify every single shilling. Where anything should be justified, it should be here. When the whole country is looking at you and saying, this thing has affected all of us, from the macro to the micro level, it has affected us. So every shilling spent is very, very important. Are we receiving value? And the shilling that you have spent, has it helped in fighting this war? Has it really helped in making sure that we've made some gains? If you're not able to give details on how the money was spent, then you leave people in limbo. You leave people with a vacuum whereby they'll be able to speculate and they'll point their fingers back at you and say, actually, you know what? Here, COVID has presented another opportunity for you to steal money that could actually help Kenyans, for you to steal money that actually could boost the economy. And that is a big problem. And if we don't get out of this thing, it's going to continue getting us down, 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 going further down this spiral. This is another example of how impunity reigns, unfortunately. Can I make that assumption? I absolutely can, because you didn't give the details. And they say the devil is in the details.
Even with detail, Ndu, Look at some of these costs. If you talk about spending 40,000 shillings a week to fuel 30 vehicles, that is for 30 vehicles, these are government vehicles. There was a budget for operation and management and maintenance of these vehicles and even fueling of these vehicles. So why are we spending extra money, 40,000 shillings, to fuel the same car that had been budgeted for? Why do you have to say that now I was fueling this car, but now because there's money has come, I'm going to fuel this car?
Are you telling us that this car moves every day the same distance?
It's not moving.
Every day.
Is it moving?
Because that's what you're assuming.
Yeah.
Is it moving farther than it was moving before?
The answer is no.
So why are we spending? Because that budget comes to 14.4 million shillings in the last 1 month.
Eric.
Has gone to fuel for 30 vehicles. How do you explain that? When you receive this kind of money from the World Bank, a lot of this money should be going towards direct interventions for COVID-19.
This is what we're saying.
That's why when I look at some of these capex expenditures, well, we can start debating on whether it's justifiable or not. But I say at least we can see lab equipment, buying or purchasing of test kits. looking at purchasing of PPEs. That is going straight into an intervention, and you can see what that intervention is. But administrative costs, when you start piling up administrative costs, 14.4 million shillings for fuel, 2 million shillings for airtime, accommodation at 12 million shillings, that's coming to 28,000 shillings per day for healthcare workers. And we know that you did not take them to a hotel, you actually took them to a government facility.
Where
It
the
did not
requirement
cost
was
you that
2,000
much.
shillings.
Yes, you're talking about procuring and installing a call center for 11.8 million shillings. This is not something that you build from scratch. There were existing facilities at NASCOP. It is there, and this is where it is being housed. Why are we looking? Why?
That structure, by the way, is a government structure.
It's a government structure, and it had a budget.
Yes, you are not asking, you're not being asked to pay for it exists.
It exists. It had a budget. It had staff that are already trained. Even if you're talking about adding more staff, this is not allowances for staff. This is procure and install. It's a capex. What have you spent it on? To procure what? To install what? Why?
The problem, this is why. A lot of times when you don't want to give the details is because what it does is that it exposes you. It exposes the fact that you don't want to then answer these questions which you're posing this morning. How then do you explain or justify 40,000 shillings for a vehicle per month? Because then you have to ask and answer the difficult questions. Where was this vehicle going? Whom was it ferrying? And what was the purpose of this particular trip? Because people have not been used to, and especially, unfortunately, this same ministry, which falls again victim to this thing over and over and over and over again. You don't want to explain because the action was not justified. It was not justified as an action in the first place. So then you're not able to answer these difficult questions. Why put yourself in such a precarious situation over and over and over again? The reason why they don't want to give the details, Eric, maybe they talked about it in Parliament or some hole somewhere in a basement in some Afia House office. Maybe they gave the details. But the reason why they don't want to make it public is because they don't want to answer the hard questions.
You know something? If you look at the budget that was allocated for government ambulances that exist, if there were fewer and you budgeted this, it would make sense because you're saying they cover a very large area. The moment you introduce new ambulances, that coverage is reduced. So even that budget has to be reduced.
Yep.
Because you're using more vehicles to cover the same area as you're covering before. When you have a budget and you have monies that are intended for what you call the public good, unfortunately you have to account for it. Maliauma, as we say. You have to account for each and every cent. Our people are accustomed to questions being asked over a period and they assume people keep quiet and we move on. This is what you're seeing here. We are not keeping quiet. We are not moving on.
No.
We have a serious situation that money has been given to, and somebody is playing the same game they've played, saying they'll make noise, then they'll keep quiet and we'll go on. This isn't noise. We are simply asking for an explanation, a viable one. Why do these things have to cost what they are saying they cost? Why must we put up with this same nonsense that this ministry has been putting the country through year in, year out? And now we have a problem that actually genuinely threatens us. And they're playing the same games. Same games.
Now, you need to remember that World Bank is not the only donor that has given money.
No.
This one, we're just talking about World Bank.
We're just talking about World Bank, all right? 1.3 billion shillings come from World Bank. How much has come from other organizations, other governments? A lot more. Jack Ma has sent in PPEs. Those PPEs are not part of what we've spent 98
Do we even know where they went
on.
to?
Those PPEs are not here. Do we even know where they've gone to? Like you are asking CT. We know that other governments have donated money. The European Union and many other governments in Europe have donated a lot of money. We'll be talking to two ambassadors this morning and they'll be telling us what kind of support we've received. So if 1.3 billion shillings has gone into this, those other monies, are they also going to have the same budget items? There's going to be tea and
by
coffee.
all indications, now
tea
they'll
and
do tea and
coffee
coffee 40 million.
for EU.
These
Tea and
fellows-
coffee for
These people
Denmark.
are eroding the confidence that donors would have towards the government. They don't see it. They're eroding the confidence that the Mwananchi would have towards the government. They're eroding it. Now, donors, when you erode it, they just stop giving you money. It's not even complicated.
They won't
They
even
just
ask.
stop. They don't
They'll-
even bother.
They'll take it somewhere else.
That money is money that their citizens have paid for in taxes.
This is taxpayers' money
Yes.
coming from their countries.
And they are accountable. They're going to be held accountable for this money and they'll be asked, why are you giving money to these thieving people? And it's not that the government is stealing. There are people in Afia House who are representing us, all of us. Because they
but
think
guess what? They are Kenyans.
That is usually
That's
the
the problem.
painful thing. And that's why I'm saying we're being
That's the
represented.
problem.
For them, it's business as usual.
I'm sure if you sat down with some of these guys, they'll justify these things for you. They
How
will
white
give you-
is
they
4
will
million?
give you
Let's even start with the small one. Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's possible for us. You know, we had now 30 vehicles. Now this car, Ndu, consider this vehicle is moving here. This is how much. You know, when it comes to budgeting, I'm not looking at what else, whether that car was. I just know that I'm using this car for COVID. Okay? So I have to allocate the money for COVID to this car. Okay? Now, you will not factor in the fact that this is a vehicle that you have not bought to be used only for COVID. This is a government vehicle that
It's
was
doing other things.
already doing other things. And now you're saying, okay, so this car has now gone to Kilifi to bring somebody who has tested positive, to bring them to Mbagathi. So we add that money.
Eric, they won't have to bring the vehicle from Kilifi. The Kilifi already has vehicles.
There you go.
Exactly.
You use the vehicles that are
That is
there.
already there.
Yeah, you have ambulance all over the country.
Even if you're talking about police officers and intelligence officers going and doing all this tracking and moving around the country, they already have a budget for that. Their job on a daily basis is move around. There's already a budget. So you can't say that because flying squad guys, no, it's no longer called flying squad. The new unit, whatever unit we are using now for tracing and tracking, these people have moved from here, they've gone to Siaya because of tracking. So we have to fuel their car. What do you mean? This car would have been fueled. Those guys would have gone to Siaya anyway. There was money for fueling that vehicle for an entire year, wherever that
was
car
allocated.
goes. Wherever that car goes, as long as it's these police officers who are using this car to go around the
As
country.
long as it's police work.
Yes, and it's police work. So you don't need to get money from Afia House to put into this car.
Because
I'm not
they also
seeing
know
how.
it's not as though people go to CI every day. They know this. So when they budget, they take into account what if it doesn't happen. It's taken care of.
Yeah.
You have accountants who understand this government work very well and they budget for it very well.
You see the way they've explained this thing to you now? You see the way they've told you what they've spent? This is the 1.3 billion. More money that's coming in. This is the same way they're going to explain. Like this. Because I've told you they don't want to explain to you the nitty-gritty. They don't want to give you the details because it will show this very thing. Then the further questions will come in. Further scrutiny, further investigations will come in and ask the questions. You send somebody from Kilifi to Nairobi. Why did you have to send that vehicle to go? Whereby you had vehicles coming from the other side? Because nobody wants to explain. Because the truth is that in actuality, that thing didn't actually happen.
It didn't happen.
It didn't happen. There was money and somebody took. Unfortunately, you have to assume. And I'm saying, fault me for calling somebody guilty before they're innocent or whatever the case may be. But historically, this has been the case. An entire chunk of money has been diverted to do something else with, unfortunately. And now when we're dealing with the lives of Kenyans, we're not talking about something amorphous or that is draped in any kind of vagary. Life and death of Kenyans. Money was given to preserve life. Money was given to make sure that you deal with this thing and those who are sick can get some kind of treatment. Now you're dancing, you're doing a dalliance with that money that was given. You don't want to explain to Kenyans who are all in this mix together. That's the problem, because you don't want to be under the eye of any kind of scrutiny. That's the issue. Other money will come and this same thing will be done. And they expect that the way in which it has been done in the past is the way it's going to be done right now. People are going to ask and you're going to want to tell them the truth.
Your nostrils are flaring, Ndu. You're getting rather worked up.
I'm
But
annoyed now.
I'd like to urge you, right? Calm down.
No, sorry.
This
That's the
is-
problem. They'll
this
tell you
is-
calm down
this is a
and
drop
money
in the
goes down
ocean.
the toilet.
Let me tell you, when other figures start popping out, you will be so mad.
That's what I'm saying. Let's start now. Even
When
with the
you-
one that they've
this
told
is
you that
just
they've
1.3
received 1
billion
month ago
shillings.
and they've spent.
Can I paint a picture for you of what you're likely to see? So you are seeing a lot of local procurement. PPEs are now being locally procured. We have told counties, you don't need to go through KEMSA. For this fight against COVID-19, for the next 3 months, you can decide how much you want to spend and where you want to spend it. We are seeing all counties coming up with all manner of things saying we are giving out free hand sanitizer, free face masks. That is being, it's being done by our local university, our local institutions here. When we start looking at how much money has been spent by counties in the fight against COVID-19, you will be mad. You will leave this country. You'll go back home. You'll be saying, Kenyan by choice? I've made my choice. I'm going back home. That's when you'll see, we have set up a new lovely facility in a stadium. We have put up tents. We are hiring that dome tent. How much per day? For how many days? The next 90 days, that dome tent is standing there. It's costing us money. when you're looking at how much we are spending on fumigation of these markets and streets and whatever, that is money. When that figure starts coming out, Ndu, this one, relax. It's 1.3.
You're not annoyed enough.
Only 1.3.
This year, they'll eat the money, clean plates, clean mouth.
It's gone.
Looking at them like that, it's gone. They'll bring others and say, please give us more.
It's gone. We're already asking others for more.
God help Kenya. Like you said, if the cases get to even a double, triple of what we're talking about
If
today.
we get to like 400, 500, 1,000 cases across the country, all counties have cases. We need to isolate all of these people. We need to put people in quarantine in all these places. Cost. Quarantine means money. Isolation means money.
Eric,
PPE is being used.
We don't even know whether we've reached those numbers yet. You know why? There are counties that are giving you low figures. We don't know what those low figures actually mean. There are people dying. We don't know whether the deaths are the normal deaths you expect at that time of the year or the deaths have increased. There's so much we don't know because some of those areas you're worried about floods. Some are worried about locusts. Some are worried about things that they're normally worried about. So really, there are many things we actually don't know, but you are spot on. That's why I have been asking for divine intervention, because this thing, my friend, gets to the soul. How do you have people in a country who are completely ignorant of the genuine state of the people of this country?
Is it that they're ignorant or they don't care?
No. It's a state of the soul. That's why I'm bringing it there.
Yeah.
You have people who don't understand that they have parents who have been paying these fees because their businesses allowed them to. The businesses have gone down in terms of productivity by something like 70%, 50%, and you still want them to pay you the same amount of money. How insensitive are you? You don't even think these are your partners. As far as you're concerned, these are your indentured slaves who should do what you tell them. They're used to telling you. You come to government. This ministry that should understand more than any other ministry the seriousness of COVID, they are playing the same bloody games they play all along. Same. How much can we make out of this? So all these other Kenyans who face this danger are irrelevant.
Our friend Mike Mbuvi Sonko, a.k.a. Hennessy Governor, he's listening in. He's basically saying, let's stop politicizing and making jokes on humans. Accountability is crucial.
Absolutely.
I've realized that Nairobians and Kenyans at large need quick agency to combat this pandemic. That's why I mobilized my own Sonko rescue team to reach out to Nairobians. This was a quick mechanism so that we would work on other modalities. But those who were after swindling public money vandalized sanitizing booths. We must value human life. Vandalize sanitizing booths because we must find a way of spending this money.
And this sanitizing is going to kill that initiative.
Yes. You're putting up those booths. So
where am I going to reach?
How are we going to justify this money?
This money that we've already taken, what we need to say that we built a booth or two, don't you think?
Yes.
My good
And then cost it the way we like.
Yeah. Toi yako. Another one is coming. Absolute nonsense. In the next hour, we'll be looking at what other governments have done to help the government of Kenya to fight COVID-19. We'll be speaking to the Denmark ambassador to Kenya, Mette Knudsen. She'll be joining us on the phone. And EU ambassador to Kenya as well, Simon Mordew. They'll be joining us on the phone from 8 to 9. We'll be speaking to them about what kind of interventions we are seeing, what kind of assistance we are seeing, and asking what kind of accountability they expect from our government. Of course, being ambassadors, they'll give us a very diplomatic way. We ask them, what do you think about this money that has been spent from the World Bank? We'll ask them anyway. That's why they'll be joining us. City Muga, as we go to the top of the hour, today's proverb.
If the only tool you have is a hammer, you will see every problem has a nail. I actually particularly find it funny.
Falls squarely.
Yes.
You've hit this one right on the nail.
Yes, Kabisa. This is a Gambian saying.
Every problem is a hammer.
Yeah, and you're saying nail.
Yeah,
Because your solution, the tool you have for solving your problems is
Kula
a hammer.
pesa. The only thing that you're seeing is pesa tuta.
How are you going to eat this money? And why are these people interfering with the process? You are anti-government.
Throw money at it.
You're anti-development.
Yes.
Nonsense.
You are not godly.
But fellow Kenyans, including you, who's a Kenyan by choice, let's support our government.
To do what? No, this is support. Look,
Let's support
honestly, look.
in whatever
when
our
we talk
government
about
is
this
doing.
thing, I actually want to help the government. I want to help
Don't
you to
criticize the
No.
government.
I'm actually helping you by telling you should be accountable to the people. I'm really, really doing you a favor. I'm doing you a huge favor. Okay, so for some crazy reason, Mombasa Road is a mess. And that's inbound. It's crazy. From Cabanas down towards General Motors, and then after that, this goes far back as the SGR. I don't know what the problem is. After General Motors, it's fine, but before that, there seems to be a bit of a hold-up. You don't know why, don't know what, but yeah, this is right around the Gateway Mall, heading down towards. We also know that the road behind the ICD is being worked on. All right. You need to understand, though, that you need to put on your masks in public, people. Protect yourselves and others. I can't say that enough. It's absolutely necessary to do so. Thika Road looks good, guys. Getting into the CBD, not much of a problem. Coming off Ngong Road and Langata Road, you'll be fine. Coming out of Westlands as well, in and out of the CBD, everybody should be doing just fine. Spice FM KE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter. If you see something out of the ordinary, let us know. We'll spread the word.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times.
2.5 minutes after 8 o'clock. Thank you very much for tuning in to The Situation Room. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. We broadcast in Nairobi on 94.4. We are in Mombasa on 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, Nakuru 96.0, 96.7 in Eldoret, Nyeri 90.9, Malindi 97.7, and we live stream the show as well on www.spicefm.co.ke. We're also on our social media handles, SpiceFMKE, Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. You can join the conversation anytime on those platforms, as well as our Instagram handle, SpiceFMKE. Now, let's talk about the kind of assistance that we are getting from our friends, our international development partners. And we are joined now on the line by two ambassadors. One is Ambassador Mette Knudsen, who is the ambassador of Denmark to Kenya, and Ambassador Simon Mordew, who is the EU ambassador to Kenya. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Situation Room, and thank you very much for speaking to us.
It's a pleasure.
Now, in the Situation Room, everybody is a friend, so we beg your indulgence, Your Excellencies, to speak to you through using just the first name, Mette and Simon.
That's very nice.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Now, we've been discussing the issue of how we are receiving support from various development partners. There's, of course, a report that you've seen in the papers this morning, came out yesterday in Parliament, on how money that was donated by the World Bank has been used so far in the fight against COVID-19. When you're also looking at the kind of support that we've been receiving from you, we know that the European Union, and Team Europe colleagues from Denmark, Sweden and Finland mobilized 211 million shillings towards water sanitization, provision and awareness raising, thus fighting COVID awareness, fighting COVID-19 across hotspots in 25 counties. So the first question here for you, Simon, can water and sanitation provision really be meaningfully provided under such emergency conditions of curfew, social distancing, lockdown, etc.? And when you say raise awareness, what does this mean?
Well, thanks a lot. I think what we're seeing here with this joint European intervention, which you rightly described as Team Europe, as we like to call it, because this is together with the European Union, Denmark, Finland, Sweden. What we're trying to do is provide water and sanitation to those areas where Kenyans are already under-resourced and where access to water is difficult. So to be very precise, what we're looking to do is to construct communal hand-washing facilities, supply soap for distribution with the tanks, and much more across, I think it's 25 counties that have been selected. market centres, public spaces and health institutions. And what we estimate will be achieved with this project is that around 120,000 people will benefit over a period of 6 months, and we're doing this hand in hand with the Water Services Trust Fund. So to come to your first question, why are we focusing on water and sanitation? Well, what we see is that the COVID-19 crisis is first and foremost a health crisis, and access to water and sanitation are fundamental preconditions for the success in the fight against this pandemic. And without proper hygiene, the spread of the virus cannot be contained. And so this is why we see this action as critical, and benefiting 120,000 people, we hope it can make a real difference.
How is this, if I can ask both of you, Meta and Simon, how then is this money that goes into the hands of this trust fund and then they distribute to make sure that these services are provided? At this point, Kenyans are itching to know how exactly this would work practically.
Meta, do you want to lead on that, or do you want me to come in?
Yeah, please start, Simon.
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to provide the funding to the Water Services Trust Fund, which is a government agency. It's a body that we've worked with in the past because this is a continuation of an existing project where we've reoriented some existing funding and mobilized some additional funding. And how they do it is generally they're working with people like public health workers, volunteers, community leaders on the raising awareness for the sharing of information, and it's small investment projects using a tried and trusted delivery mechanism which we've seen the success of already in the past.
Meta?
Yeah, I think it's important also for us that in our support we have tried to use channels of engagement that we are already working with, so that we would be assured that there would not be any unnecessarily delays in setting up new mechanisms and new bank accounts and hiring new people. So for us, it's important to continue to work with the Water Sector Trust Fund that we have worked with for a number of years.
So, Meta, is the government of Denmark has already donated over 800 million shillings towards Kenya for the fight against COVID-19. Is this fund being channeled through Team Europe, or is it coming straight separately from Denmark?
These are funds that are coming directly from Denmark. And for the first batch of money that we made available, we chose to do it in cooperation with the World Bank. So there the funds actually go through the World Bank and then into the supporting the health system in Kenya. But the rest of the money that we are providing this time around goes directly through the existing partners we have, and that is the Water Sector Trust Fund for the water and sanitation side, and it's the Treasury, and it's all the counties in Kenya when it comes to the health services.
Okay, if we're looking at the amounts of money that have been given, I mean, we're looking at quite significant amounts of money here. Obviously, it was not a by-the-way thought, and this is for both of you, Simon and Mete. It's not a by-the-way thought. What would success look like in these projects at the end of the day, to say that the money that we put forward actually gave us the results that we're looking for? What would that picture look like?
Yes, from my point... Oh, sorry, Simon?
Go on, Meta, please.
Well, for us, success is that we try to help Kenya handle this pandemic so that it develops in a controlled manner. I think it's very important that the spread of the virus is slowed down, which can be helped by improving sanitation and hygiene. It's very important that it develops in a way where the health system does not collapse, so that the health system can handle both the fallout of the pandemic, but also all the other critical health challenges that we see in Kenya: malaria, HIV, maternal and child health, and so on. So ultimately, our objective is that Kenya will be able to handle this crisis and come out on the other side stronger, more cohesive. But this is also something that we support not only with these funds, but of course also with our existing cooperation, where we work both in health, in governance, and to support green growth in Kenya.
Your Excellency, Denmark has been one of the oldest European partners Kenya has had. Successfully, little ups and downs at some point or the other, but one of the areas in which you have supported the Kenyan people and the Kenyan government is in agriculture. Do you not think that supporting in agriculture during this time of COVID-19 would also be useful? Because I've heard of COVID, yes, but I have heard of water, but I haven't heard of agriculture. Or is there a program that is ongoing that we don't know about?
No, I absolutely agree with you that this crisis is not only a health crisis, it's definitely also, and maybe at this point in time in Kenya even more, an economic crisis. And we are certainly looking at how we can also assist Kenya with the economic recovery in supporting the creation of jobs, securing people's livelihood and welfare. And we do that in the number of our existing interventions. I could maybe mention that we work with an institution called the Micro Enterprise Support Program Trust, which is very active in supporting value chains in agriculture and actually supporting farmers and small enterprises in terms of developing their businesses, growing their business so that they can employ people. And this is an engagement that we definitely intend to continue.
Could I just add perhaps a quick word on that?
Yes, go ahead.
Because Meta was very discreet. But actually, tomorrow, at around this time, Meta and I will be publicly announcing another joint EU-Denmark initiative, where together with the Centre for Climate Change and Innovation at Strathmore University, we'll be launching the very first call for proposals under the Agribiz program, which precisely will be looking to provide support for agri-entrepreneurs to rise up the value chain, maintain their production, and offer some hope for the agricultural sector in this difficult time. And the agriculture sector is very much part of our package of response measures. One of the things we're doing as well is we're providing some funding for farmers to have access to seed and saplings in advance of the planting season, so that come the autumn or come October, November, there will be a good harvest, because there was a question of difficulty in cash for buying some of the inputs needed for the next harvest season. And that's part of the overall response as well.
Your Excellency Simon, for the longest time, the entities that have taken center stage in supporting Kenya with its healthcare issues, problems, and needs has been the U.S. through PEPFAR funding, UNAIDS. I am aware that the European Union is also very instrumental in supporting. But why are you not more visible?
Well, perhaps sometimes the European Union, the way we work, is not always easily understood. We are the biggest donor globally in the world. And if I look at the efforts of the European Union as a whole for the support of Kenya, if we take the period between 2018 and 2022, we're providing something around 500 billion Kenyan shillings. Sometimes perhaps we don't sell ourselves as well as we should, but I do think that we are a key partner for Kenya, both on the development front, but even more so on the trade front, where if you look at, for example, foreign investment, we have over 1,000 European companies operating in Kenya, a couple of hundred from the Netherlands, more than 100 from Sweden, 170 from Germany, just to name a few. And these companies have created job opportunities for hundreds of thousands of Kenyans and are vital for the Kenyan economy. And we see this as a hugely important partnership.
My next question is two words into both of you. Why Kenya? Or can we see that there will be cross-continental partnerships with other countries like this?
Yeah, I think both for Denmark, but definitely also for the European Union as a whole, cooperation with Africa is a key priority, and I'm sure Simon can tell more about the priorities of the new European Commission. But for Denmark, what we have done, what our ministers have done, is to make a major envelope available to counter the COVID-19 effects in the developing world, and with a strong focus on Africa. So the funds that we provide to Kenya comes out of a pot of 20 million euros that goes to countries in the Sahel and in the Horn of Africa. So, for example, we also cover Somalia from here, and we have also provided additional funding there. But in addition to that, we provide 55 million euros to the UN system for their global humanitarian appeals, and this is, of course, also money that to some extent will benefit Kenya, because it supports the activities of the World Food Program, of UNICEF, of UNHCR, organizations that are also very active in Kenya. Mm-hmm. We also give 20 million euros through our Danish civil society organizations that are cooperating with several organizations here in Kenya. I met with them just the other week, and it's organizations like the Danish EBIS, which works with Oxfam here in Kenya. It's the Danish Refugee Council that have a lot of its operations in East Africa out of Kenya. It's the Danish Red Cross, also a strong partner of Kenya Red Cross, and so on. So I think that through all these other mechanisms, a lot of money will go to also to Kenya, but of course also to the rest of Africa.
Mette, coming back to... sorry, go ahead, Simon.
I was going to say, if you look at the response of the European Union as a whole, we rolled out a package which is, I think, unprecedented in its size. We're talking about a 15 billion euro global package mobilized at the beginning of April to help our partners in developing countries facing a virus that affects all of us. Now, why so much prominence for Kenya? I think it reflects the importance of the relationship of the European Union with Kenya. And this goes far beyond just a pure economic or trading relationship. Obviously, we're Kenya's biggest trading partner. We're the largest export market for Kenya. But there is so much more in common. We're working hand in hand at the moment, particularly to strengthen multilateralism, which is under attack from some quarters. And one shouldn't underestimate the importance for Kenya. This is the only UN headquarters in the Southern Hemisphere. It's home of the UN Environment Programme, the UN Human Settlements Programme. Kenya itself has championed a number of landmarking initiatives on climate change, wildlife protection, sustainable trade of valuable species. Our interests are very strong and common, and I think in a time of crisis, this is where partners stand up to support each other, and this friendship needs to be remembered.
Ambassador Mette Knudsen, you've said that Denmark has donated quite a bit of money going towards water and sanitation, and you're working with an organization, a government organization that you've worked with before and supported before, the Water Services Trust Fund. But for this particular fight against COVID-19, as the beneficiaries of your generous support, what should we expect to see? Are we talking about seeing more water being provided at every household? Because I don't imagine that this is money that's going to start buying pipes and setting up new pipelines. So what shall we see in the next in a few days?
I would say that our usual engagement with the Water Sector Trust Fund is focused on the more disadvantaged parts of Kenya, the Asal area. So a lot of interventions in Mandera, in Garissa, in Tana River, in those counties in Kenya that are really suffering from lack of access to clean drinking water. And there we work with the Water Sector Trust Fund, who again work with the counties and with their water companies. We work with water users associations, with a lot of organizations all over Kenya. This is a long-term relationship and something that we have been doing for years. we have also strengthened that recently by an added focus on areas that are hosting refugees. So you will see that in Turkana, in Garissa, we are supporting additional interventions through this fund. But the new money and the cooperation we have with the European Union is mainly focused on Nairobi and on the major cities and on the informal settlements in the cities where access to water is a problem and where it's very difficult for the people to live up to the demands of this epidemic in terms of all the hand washing requirements, the general sanitation and hygiene requirements. So it would be within the informal settlements that you will see this additional funding being directed.
So what's a picture of success for you? What exactly do you hope to see, or what should the people in these informal settlements see? Is it water bowsers bringing water, or is it hand washing facilities being put up, erected around these areas? What exactly, practically, is the money going to be used for?
No, that's exactly the type of activities that can be funded, and of course that is very much up to the Kenyan authorities to define the specific needs in cooperation with the health authorities. I don't think I'm the specialist on that, but it will be exactly what you're saying: easier access to hand washing facilities, easier access to running water, to possibilities of keeping good hygiene and so on. It will be this kind of activities. And I want to stress that we have mobilized this funding very, very fast.
Yeah.
Now we really look to the Kenyan authorities to also mobilize very fast to make sure that the money is not in a bank account, that it's actually being spent to make sure that these services are improved, if not tomorrow, then at least next week and the following week. So I really hope that both the government of Kenya and also all the people of Kenya will follow up on the money that we provide and help us ensure that it's used efficiently and to provide the services that our taxpayers would like to see the Kenyan citizens access.
Are you nervous about that at all?
Well, yes, I am.
What makes you nervous,
because,
Mette?
of course, we know that it's not always that things move as fast as we would like to see. And these are not normal days we are in. These are days where we all have to run the extra mile, do something extra to make sure that things happen fast, because this epidemic will not wait for us to go through a whole lot of bureaucratic circles. So I think it's very important that it at all layers in also the Kenyan system, as we have done in our own system, that people take this in hand and really make sure that decisions are made today and not tomorrow.
Right. And for both of you, Simon and Mette, looking forward, do you think this serves as a litmus test? Because COVID is going to end at some point, or at least we're going to get to the place whereby countries around the world are going to be able to live with the reality that is COVID. But the terrible situations that we see now will come to an end. Would this be a litmus test then to see how much further in terms of partnership you would be able to go with Kenya, with other countries in the future?
I think it's a moment for reflection. As you say, this is a time when solidarity comes to the forefront, where partners need to work together. I think the European Union is showing its commitment to Kenya and its commitment to the broader region. I think what we need to try and do as well is make sure that in this difficult situation, we're planting some seeds that can also support growth in the future and sustainable development. I mean, take, for example, some of the challenges we face at the moment with the East African community, where, of course, closing borders for the movement of people whilst maintaining a smooth movement of goods and keeping trade flows going is the right thing to do from a health perspective. This is a challenge we've had in the European Union. But I think at the same time, we need to see much more strengthened relationship between the East African Union countries themselves, so that we can see post the COVID crisis much more regional growth, much more development. The possibilities are there. And I think we also have to look at this situation, to look at the overall fiscal situation in Kenya and make sure that choices that are being made for national priorities for investment are the right ones that bring the biggest benefit for Kenyan population. And the European Union will stand by Kenya. It's a hugely important relationship.
There's the issue of accountability.
I would certainly echo that, and I think for us, I think one of the slogans that we put forward these days is that we should not only grow back better, we should also grow back greener, and that very much adds to the relationship that we have developed with Kenya over the years, which has been focused to a large extent on the promotion of green growth and sustainable development, and we are at the moment preparing the next phase of our support for Kenya that will start in January next year, and this new program, new 5-year program, will definitely have a strong focus on trying to support Kenya's growth in a way that protects the environment, that mitigates effects of climate change, and in general support a green development path.
There's the issue of accountability, Your Excellencies, and this is looking at the fact that COVID is an emergency and COVID is not a long term. Even the kind of support that you're giving us for short term, medium term, and long term. In terms of the short term measures and interventions that you're supporting, have you put in any kind of safeguards to ensure that the money goes into the right function?
That's very much at our forefront of our minds. I mean, as Meta said earlier, one of the things we're doing is we're working with tried and trusted partners with whom we've got a successful track record of cooperation. So the Water Trust Fund, in terms of keeping goods moving across the borders, we're working with Trademark East Africa, who have a long record in dealing with trade-related issues in the region and are well recognised by all the partners. We're looking to work with the Climate Change Innovation Centre at Strathmore University as part of our Agribiz programme. We're looking to work with the Kenyan Red Cross, with Oxfam, a highly innovative mechanism that will channel money directly to the M-Pesa account of some of the most vulnerable people. So we're looking to work with partners that have a track record and where that ability to work together is there, and we will also be quite clear in what we expect as the outcomes of this intervention, and so we'll be able to monitor the impact of that. And this is important for us because this is a substantial and comprehensive package that we're rolling out quickly, and it's important that we see the concrete results of that and benefits.
Simon, there's an op-ed that you wrote, and it was published on the Standard on Tuesday this week. And in that op-ed, you spoke about 1.1 billion of shillings from the EU support that's going towards supporting women and vulnerable households, shielding them from the financial impact of measures to contain COVID-19. Can you elaborate on this?
Yes, this is what I was just hinting at. What we're looking to do is we're working with the Ministry of Labour and also the National Drought Management Authority, and we're going to run a cash transfer programme that will complement the National Safety Net programme. So in simple terms, what we're going to do is we're going to look to provide a safety net via an M-Pesa cash transfer for over 150,000 people situated primarily in the informal settlements in Nairobi, so Kibera and elsewhere. How are we going to do it? What we're going to try and do is reach those households that have been affected by the COVID-19 lockdown and curfew and who are struggling to find alternative ways of finances during this period. And we're going to look to put in the cash transfers in a coordinated manner so it can get funds directly to them.
When you speak of coordinated, have you considered probably working with the Emergency Response Fund that has been established and is already piloting that M-Pesa cash transfer method?
Yeah, it's been done hand in hand with the Ministry of Labour, so there's no household that will receive, if you like, support from two different sources.
I see.
There's a coordinated National Safety Net programme, and we said we'll stand up and take over this for these areas, and the Emergency Fund will do it in a complementary manner. So we're not seeing a duplication.
One of the things that I believe has stood out in the partnership that the EU and Denmark has had in this country is that they've always been a reliable partner in times of crisis. Now let's look at this country post-COVID. Is there anything that the EU and Denmark have in place that, alongside assisting this country, a system of check and balance where they hold the people that give the money in this country accountable for the money that they have been given and the purposes for which they intended?
Well, if I should respond from the Danish side, it's always extremely important for us that the money that we provide as development assistance is spent efficiently. What I always repeat is that these are money from the Danish taxpayers. The Danish taxpayers is not a bunch of millionaires. The main providers of taxes in Denmark are completely ordinary people. It's teachers, it's nurses, it's factory workers. It's part of their salary that's paid as tax, and that goes into development assistance. So also as an ambassador here in Kenya, I'm responsible for spending these people's money, hard-earned money, in a way that really makes a difference. So this is very close to my heart to make sure that what we provide of funding is used efficiently. We have completely zero tolerance for corruption. We have completely zero tolerance for inefficient waste of money. So we try to monitor quite closely how our money is spent, and we react quite forcefully to any indication of misuse of money or that procedures are not being followed and so on. So, for example, in the health sector, as I said, the money we provide here for the health sector goes straight out to the counties, and from them, from the counties, the money is channeled to all the primary healthcare facilities in Kenya. It's, of course, not a lot of money that each facility receives, but very often it's what makes the difference for them in terms of being able to open, to have electricity, to employ that extra cleaner, whatever they need. So even if it's small money for each facility, we do take spot checks of 5 to 10% of all these facilities to document that the money is actually spent as it should be. And that is, of course, in addition to the usual audit that looks at the flow of the funds and whether proper accounting has been done. So as I said, this is really key to us, that money should be spent well.
Simon?
As Meta says, we follow basically the same principle. Lots of visits on the ground to see regularly what's happening. We're clear with our interventions what we want to achieve, and we monitor it closely. But over and beyond, if you like, the obligation for us to make sure that all the funding that we provide is used in a correct manner, we're obviously also very interested in the broader issues around good, sound public financial management in Kenya, where there are still challenges. We have a big program running at the moment with Treasury on the public finance management, which is also looking to improve, for example, the accuracy of the forecasting of revenues, where each year we've seen traditionally in Kenya there's been a huge gap. And we're also working very hard together with the Ethics Commission, Anti-Corruption Commission, the DPP and the DTI, and where I think, like many Kenyans, the time is probably right to see some of these high-level profile corruption cases brought to a conclusion. There's over 100 cases that in some cases have been running for more than 10 years, but not with one single high-level conviction yet. I think the time has come for people to see people who have committed such crimes serving time in prison, and the assets that they have acquired irregularly confiscated and returned to the Kenyan people.
As we say goodbye to you this morning, you are aware, of course, of the kind of outcry that has come out of the public after figures were published yesterday on how money has so far been used in the fight against COVID-19. looking at it from where you sit, you see these kind of figures and accounting every time on people coming back and saying, this is what we've spent. And we can justify by indication of how we spent it. Kenyans are asking, when you're looking at this and wondering, so why are we spending money on, teas and snacks? Why are we spending money on accommodating people for such hefty amounts of money? Why are we spending money hiring ambulances? What would you say to that? Simon, start with you.
Well, I think that mainly this is a discussion for the Kenyan people, the Kenyan taxpayers, and for your politicians to discuss the overall priority of how money is spent in Kenya. But of course, we have an interest since we are also supporting Kenya in many ways, and of course it's very good if the public and the press is very alert and monitoring closely how money is spent. That's actually something we also try to support. For example, we work with the civil society organization Uraia in order to for them to strengthen the possibility of citizens to monitor expenditures in the counties, to follow the budgeting process, to follow how money is spent, how they are allocated, and so on. It's really important, of course, to keep those who are duty bearers, who have the money to monitor them closely to see if they fulfill their duties. And this is a task for Kenyan citizens, for the press, as well as it is for those of us who also provide some money.
I think I would add to that. I just adding this shows how important as well the office of Auditor General is in a country like Kenya. And I think it gives a demonstration of how important it is to see a new Auditor General appointed to that function as soon as possible. But equally on the positive side, it's a sign also of a vibrant democracy in Kenya, which allows such matters to be discussed in an open manner in the press and in the parliament. And I think that's a positive sign. I mean, on our side, what we try and do is make sure that we're absolutely clear about what we want to achieve in our interventions. We follow it closely and we can see demonstrable results. I mean, take, for example, one of our flagship projects, the Lake Turkana Wind Power, funded with the European Investment Bank, a flagship project for Kenya, a flagship project for the continent, which is now producing 17% of Kenya's energy every day with no carbon emissions. And these are the kind of concrete, visible results that we need to be able to demonstrate because, as Meta rightly said, the funding we are providing is provided by our taxpayers to the Kenyan population, and we have a duty to make sure that we are producing results and that the funds are being spent properly.
We'll take some questions. I'm sure our listeners would like to ask you one or two questions. So we'll open up the phone lines and also take some questions via social media. Spice FM KE on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and Instagram as well. If you've got any question for Ambassador Mette Knudsen, who is the ambassador of Denmark to Kenya, and the EU ambassador to Kenya, Simon Mordew, they're here with us. They're online with us on the situation of this morning at 22 minutes to 9 o'clock. Let's first of all take a quick look at traffic, and then the conversation continues. Stay on the line, Your Excellencies.
Okay, Thika Road from Utali going into the city centre. It seems that that is a bit of a hold-up, trying to get to the Pangani underpass. It'll take a slow minute then to get into the CBD. Hopefully that will be sorted out in a bit, and then you can move quickly. Muthaiga, especially at that junction, then heading into town, it seems that people are behaving normally. Normally being that it's a mess as far as traffic is concerned. All right, there's been an accident on Thika Road again. Use the service lane if you must, because of that accident, the main highway has been affected. Police on site, slight injuries, so a few casualties there, but it's being dealt with, so be careful as you approach in and outbound in this case. On Mombasa Road, right after the Gateway Mall, still a little bit of traffic there, right until you get to the Cabanas section of the road. After General Motors, there, you're on Easy Street. We'll keep looking at it. Let us know what you see. Spice FMKE on Twitter. Let's keep it moving.
This is a situation on Kenya's biggest conversation.
Spice up your life.
Nairobi on Spice FM. Spice FM is on 94.4. Nairobi.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Eldoret 96.7, 90.9 Nyeri, 97.7 in Malindi. We also live stream the show.
Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Joining us on the line, my name is Eric Latif, City Muga Nduoko. Joining us is ambassadors. Ambassador Simon Mordew, the EU ambassador to Kenya, and Ambassador Mette Knudsen. She is the Danish ambassador to Kenya. We're going to take in some questions that have coming in on social media as well. You can call 0719-012-600 and do some questions.
All right, this is for both of you, Simon and Mette, and it's is there some sort of quid pro quo of this generosity and others that we may have seen before and in the future? What do you expect from Kenya?
What's in it for you?
Well, if you allow me to start on that one, there's no quid pro quo. That's not the way we work. What I do think is, as I said earlier in the interview, the EU and Kenya have so many interests in common. We're working hand in hand to strengthen multilateralism at a difficult moment. Kenya is hugely important for the regional security. We recognise the challenges you face, and Kenyan citizens face from the Al-Shabaab terrorist threat. We've been providing funding for the African peace support operations since 2007. We're the main financer of AMISON. We continue supporting the AMISON activities for the period ahead. We're working hand in hand as well with you to improve the safety off your coast with the NAFO Atlanta Regional Maritime Security Mission. So our interests are so close, so tied. This is a partnership and one which is based upon mutual respect. There is no cheap quid pro quo demands being made. This is a time when the world needs to work together, and partnerships such as this are important.
Well, I can only echo that. I think that for us, our prosperity, the peace in our part of the world, the welfare for our people is closely interlinked with also the peace and prosperity and welfare of Africa. And the African continent is the closest neighbor of Europe, and we have long ties, Denmark especially, to Kenya over the years. And for us, this is, as Simon has stressed, a partnership where we work together and where we, together with Kenya, often have the same goals. I can also just refer back to the autumn where Kenya and Denmark were the co-conveners of the International Conference on Population and Development here in Nairobi. Just another sign that we share the same goals and objectives in our world.
Another question that comes in from someone else is, in terms of support for Kenya, how large is the purse? If you see that the situation might get worse or more dire, are you willing to help, and how much more?
I mean, like
from our side, I mean, our minister is still looking at mobilizing more funding also for the long-term recovery of countries that have been severely affected by the virus. But in addition to that, as I mentioned earlier in the program, we are looking at the moment at preparing the next 5-year program of our cooperation with Kenya, which is with an envelope of, I think, what is it in shilling, 13-14 billion Kenya shilling over 5 years. So we are strongly committed to continuing our engagement with Kenya.
Similarly, on the EU side, we're in a period now of finalising our preparations for the next programming period, and I expect to see Kenya continuing to feature prominently. And I mean, prior to the crisis, we had identified a couple of main flagship priority areas from discussions we've had with the government so far. One was around the whole theme of greening the economy, looking to create a circular economy where resources were used more efficiently, more effectively, less waste, moving away from carbon-intense emissions to replicate the kind of success we saw with the Lake Turkana wind power plant or with some of the renewable energy solar plants we've been providing support for in the Rift Valley. But equally, we were working very hard with Cabinet Secretary Joe Mucheru and his team around the whole digital agenda, the way in which we could unleash some of the new technologies to perhaps skip a generation of development here in Kenya and build on some of the successes we've seen with technologies like M-Pesa, and bringing that into play for some of the societal challenges we face, like sustainable low-cost housing, and the use of technology to improve production lines. And I think that work is still going on, and our challenge now is to look to make sure that as we exit from what is an economic crisis, we're doing so in a sustainable manner and in a way that is green and that allows us to produce sustainable growth, sustainable development over years to come.
There's Brian Otieno is asking this on Twitter. He's basically looking at the situation post-COVID and is wondering, when the situation normalizes, what do you think? Do you think that Denmark and the EU will allow Kenyans to travel to Denmark? And are there any new requirements that will be set?
No, I mean, I think I should answer that. Denmark, of course, is still in the midst of handling the epidemic itself, and one of the measures that has been taken, as has also been taken here in Kenya, is to limit the movements in and out of the country. But of course, this is not something that we will keep up longer than absolutely necessary. We are an open country, an open economy. We also need to restart our businesses, restart tourism and all the general exchanges. So of course we will open up again, and that includes of course also for Kenyans. We have a lot of Kenyans that were supposed to travel to Denmark this year for different courses, different seminars in connection with our engagement here, and of course we want them to come and visit Denmark as soon as possible. So I think this will go hand in hand with the general opening of the Danish society, and we are at the moment waiting for the announcement of our government around the 10th of May for the next phase of our reopening process. So by then I think things will be slightly more clear.
One of the activities that we'd actually been investing in before the COVID crisis hit us all globally was how could we encourage many more young Kenyan students to avail themselves of the possibility to go and study at an EU university, because one of the things that had struck me when I arrived here as ambassador last year was that there was a relatively low number of Kenyan students profiting from the opportunities under one of our programs, which is called Erasmus, which in very simple terms provided for young students the full coverage of their tuition fees, the full coverage of their travel costs, and the full coverage of their living costs. But in the last few years, the number of successful applicants each year from Kenya had been relatively low. We're talking about only 10 to 15 applicants succeeded. So we've been doing some work at the University of Nairobi, at Strathmore University, at the universities in Iten and Eldoret, and elsewhere, to try and encourage young Kenyans to apply for this wonderful opportunity, because often it was also accompanied with the possibility to stay and work in Europe after their successful graduation. And this is something that we remain very committed to. So if you've any listeners out there who are about to graduate, this is normally for master's degrees, have a look at some of the information on our website, because we're keen to encourage young Kenyans to come and study in Europe and avail themselves of this possibility. So this is not a moment to be talking about Fortress Europe. On the contrary, this post-crisis is a moment for us to be building and strengthening this relationship, strengthening this partnership, and building on the seeds that we've planted together during this difficult period.
It's an interesting program that you mentioned there, Ambassador Simon. You're calling it the Erasmus program.
Yeah, that's correct. And I'm happy to share some more information with you on that.
Yeah, that would be interesting to know about, so people can know about this. What kind of programs, what kind of courses qualify for this program, and what are the basic requirements?
At the moment, it's primarily for master's studies, so you have to have got your graduate degree already, but it's basically open to virtually every course you can imagine at almost all universities within the European Union. And you'll find some easily digestible information on our website. And for me, this is one of the most exciting possibilities that there is, and I really would encourage people to have a look. Because, as I say, it covers your tuition fees, it covers your air costs, and it covers your living costs. It's a fantastic opportunity.
All right, so Martha asks that it would be interesting to hear what the EU and Denmark's faith is in the government of Kenya to make sure that development initiatives are actually carried out until the expected end. And this is faith in the government specifically.
What I didn't understand the question. What our say is, or
faith, what your faith is in the government to actually carry out some of these initiatives until the expected end.
Well, I think the fact that we're going ahead and committing funds is a clear demonstration of our conviction that these projects will come to a successful end. We're not normally in the habit of spending money on projects where we're not sure that we can achieve what we want to do. So I am absolutely certain that at the end of these projects, if we look at the water project, we'll have had 120,000 people benefiting from this. We'll have seen and can physically see the communal hand washing facilities that have been built. We'll be able to see the fact that soap has been distributed, that we've had an impact. Equally, I'm quite confident that at the end of this program, we will see that over 150,000 people have benefited from the cash transfers and have been able to get through a very difficult period. I'm confident that I will see the concrete results from the work we're trying to do to facilitate the movement of trade. And here a point I want to make is very important. We're also doing it in a way that there is something left after the COVID crisis that is still relevant. One of the things we're doing here, for example, is putting in place a system that allows tracking of truck drivers once they have crossed the borders, which will complement an existing cargo tracking system that exists already for the East African community, and this will still have value after the crisis and still bring a huge amount of contribution to increasing confidence on trade movement. So I'm absolutely confident that these projects will reach their successful ends.
So we want to thank you very much for speaking to us this morning, Ambassador Mette Knudsen and Simon Mordew. Final words that you'd like to pass on a message to Kenyans, starting with the European Union.
In times of difficulty, friends stand together. We're here, we're standing side by side with you. Your strength, your successful exit from this crisis is hugely important to us, and we stand in solidarity.
Thank you very much. Mete?
Yeah, I would definitely echo that and also say I have a lot of confidence in Kenya and in the Kenyan people. You're a resilient, strong people, and I'm sure you will get through this by standing together, by following the advice on how to handle the epidemic, by supporting your families, your neighbors, but we are also here with you and here to assist. And I would say personally, I'm in my 5th year in Kenya, bound unfortunately to leave this summer. But it has been an incredibly rewarding 5 years. I'm full of admiration for this country and its wonderful people. And I'm sure you will get out of this stronger and better. And as I said, also with a greener development path.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mete. And I'm sure I'll be speaking for many who have worked with you in saying thank you for all the work that you've done in your tour of duty in the country.
Thank you.
And wishing you all the best when you leave the country. Come back. You know, Kenya is a beautiful country. You know that.
I will come back for sure.
Of course, we'll be visiting our friends. Mette Knudsen is the ambassador of Denmark to Kenya. Simon Modu is the EU ambassador to Kenya. Thank you very much as well for speaking to us, Simon.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you for both of you. Thank you so much.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Bye-bye.
This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Good morning. It's 5 minutes to 9.
Online, mobile, and on radio. Instagram at SpiceFMKE. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Money. There's a lot of money that brings a lot of support.
Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
They have a lot of confidence in the partners that they work with. Right?
They have a lot of confidence in the people of Kenya. Please note.
In the people of
in
Kenya.
the people of Kenya.
Yes, not those people who represent us in eroding this confidence. Yes.
But also, there are very many people who represent us in working with these organizations that receive money, that they're able to account for the money that they've received.
It's interesting because they say that, you know, the money that they're putting forward to help Kenya is money that has come from their taxpayers.
Their people.
Their people that they have to go and answer to if anything goes wrong. And I thought that was very interesting because that came out very clearly, that it is their people that they're going to answer to. This money that you have given us to be the custodians of, you need to make sure that it goes to its expected end.
Yeah.
And they're by no uncertain terms, and they're very sure that that's who they have to answer to. Not to some emperor sitting somewhere, not to somebody sitting in a position of authority. It's the people.
If you notice, even when it comes to American funding, you always find some congressmen, a group of them coming. Because ultimately, that's where the buck will stop.
Yep.
You are talking about UNAIDS. You are talking about PEPFAR. It all goes back to Congress. They will have, because Congress are the people's representatives. You have to answer and explain how this thing is done.
You've got to prove and justify.
Man, you have to.
Coming to the top of the hour, in the next hour, we'll be talking about school fees. Again, that fiasco between private schools and parents. We're back in that conversation. So, Siti Muga, today's proverb.
If your only tool is a hammer, you will see every problem as a nail. Yes.
You only have a hammer. Every problem
is a nail.
Yep. Just want to hammer it.
I just want to clobber it.
Or pluck it out.
There's that detail, yes.
Or bend it. That
Indeed.
too.
Or flatten it.
But everything, you must only use the hammer.
Clobber it.
This is The Situation Room. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock.
Somebody went and restored Thika Road back to factory settings because there's some crazy traffic that's happening right around Muthaiga and then trying to join the Pangani underpass into the CBD. It's crawling along very, very slowly. My guess is that something may have happened. We don't know yet, but that's what we see. All right. It feels like 5 p.m. on Mombasa Road, and that's just outside the Gateway Mall and then moving further down. Don't know what the problem is there either. We do know that that road is still being constructed, what is Old Mombasa Road behind there. So that is an issue as well. Hopefully it will ease up in a short while. Right about 9 o'clock, in half an hour or so, it should disappear. So we ask you to be a little bit patient. Anything that you see that we should know about, let us know and we can spread the word. Spice FMKE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth,
So the issue
Kenyan
of
by choice,
schools
communications
and,
expert,
seeking and demanding clarity from the government is why we left it off yesterday, right? So are we on holiday? Are we on extended holiday? Are we not? What's the situation? Are we going to come back and complete the 2 terms that were not completed when schools were ordered closed? Or are we moving straight into second term? Is the KICD going to roll out these programs from next week, from the 4th, that they were doing before we went into proper holiday? Or is it not? Are schools expected to be offering online learning for the next 30 days? Or are they not? All these questions need answers. And I think the answers ought to come from the ministry itself, the Ministry of Education. Yesterday we saw the opposition leader, let's call him opposition leader, Musalia Mudavadi. Opposition leader Musalia Mudavadi, he had a press conference, he was addressing these issues and saying, look, there is a lot of information that's not coming from where it should be coming from. This is the Ministry of Education. It needs to give proper clarity and guidance on the next 30 days. This is exactly what's going to happen. After the 30 days, this is exactly what's going to happen. Is an exam going to be held this year? Is it going to be postponed next year? If it's held this year, what's going to happen? If it's postponed, for how long can it be postponed? How does it impact the transition from primary to secondary, from secondary to university? No decision does not have an impact. And therefore, the Ministry of Education cannot just keep its head buried in the sand and expect that, wait, we'll tell you what to do. We will tell you, don't worry.
Eventually.
You relax. We'll tell you what to do. But there's still the issue of school fees, because this whole confusion brings in the issue of, is there communication that parents are receiving from schools, especially private schools, with regards to school fees, with regards to learning?
Are they even having productive conversations?
Is it happening at all?
And if it is, which schools are having these productive conversations? We are now hearing that there are parents who've taken the school board that the children go to court. If it's one school, there'll be another.
There'll be others.
It tells you that there is a running dispute that has not found an avenue for resolution.
Indeed.
So, yes. Now, why is it so? These are parents in Kenya. The school is in Kenya. The school board is in Kenya. Why is this thing suddenly becoming a teeth-pulling exercise?
And I think it's because of that problem. Because the head has not said anything. So what happens is that everybody now starts to do their own or make their own little decisions here that is going to cause some kind of friction at whatever point you want to see it as. Now the head has said something, right? They've said it's an extended holiday. Now, unfortunately, everybody has been left to deduce what they will from that. Okay, and so you have schools then who are charging and they're saying we're going to the second term. You have parents who are saying, well, absolutely not, forget it, we're on holiday. How do we learn during a holiday? And then how do you then demand school fees of me during this holiday? It absolutely makes no sense. Now, regardless of whatever decision anybody is going to take, like you said, it has an impact. Whether I'm going to refuse to pay school fees, it could mean that when schools do open, my child has no school to go to.
Yep.
It could mean that, okay, parents are going
Or
to
they'll be left
refuse to
behind
pay.
because the other students will have,
Would have moved further.
on in
We
the
also hear
syllabus.
communication from the Ministry of Education that when we do open schools, what is going to happen is that students will pick up where they left off. So now, if you want to make deductions
Are we
from
clear where they
all
left
of this,
off?
are we clear where they left off? Because if it is where they left off officially, that was in March when schools were closed.
15th of March, to be precise.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we want to take this to its logical conclusion, if we are going by what the minister has said, what the CS has said rather, that schools have closed and we will communicate with you,
We will tell you if and when.
we will open.
When we are ready to talk to you, we'll tell you.
From the only things that they have said, there are deductions that can be made. And should we go with those? Or should we make other inferences? Should we go and live and say this is what schools have said and this is what we should go by? What has been the case in the past?
Let us seek answers this morning. So we'll be speaking shortly with opposition leader Musalia Mudavadi. We'll be speaking to him because from him we want to understand where he was coming from when he was making that statement as the leader of Amani National Congress. But also let's speak to the Private Schools Association. The Kenya Private Schools Association Chief Executive Officer Peter Ndoro is joining us on the line, and also the National Parents Association Chairman Nicholas Mayo is with us on the line. Let's start with Peter. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning to you.
Good morning, Peter.
How are you today?
We're
We
well.
are
thank you.
well and very grateful that you've availed your time. Thank you.
Karibu sana.
And Nicholas Mayo, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Nicholas.
Good morning, madam.
Thank you very much for speaking to us. Gentlemen, welcome to the Situation Room. In the room, my name is Eric Latif. We have C.T. Muga and Nduoko. And let's start with you, Peter. First, tell us about the Private Schools Association. Who are your members and what do you stand for?
Now, thank you very much, Eric. First of all, the Kenya Private Schools Association is an association of private schools that are registered by the Ministry of Education and running a local curriculum that is approved by the government through KICD. That is Kenya Private Schools Association. Our membership range from private kindergartens, primary schools, as well as private secondary schools. All of this must be registered by the Ministry of Education. At the moment, we have over 11,800 private schools, both for kindergarten, primary, and secondary schools, with a student population of about 2.3 million children, and a teaching force of about 155,000 teachers and 123,000 non-teaching staff. Private Schools Association, the Kenya Private Schools Association, commonly referred to as KIPSA, mandate is to lobby on behalf of the private schools to ensure that they are not disadvantaged and they contribute to the growth of education in our country. We cater for the needs of the low cost, the medium cost, and the high cost, as long as all those institutions are properly registered by the Ministry of Education and running an approved curriculum as per the calendar prescribed by the Cabinet Secretary of the Ministry of Education.
So these are all private schools that are offering 844 and CBC.
Yes, the 844 and the CBC curriculum. That is the local curriculum.
All right.
All right. And Nicholas, tell us about the Parents Association.
Yeah, the National Parent Association has a process from school level, county level, and national level. I'm now the national chairman of the national level. We have the first structure starting from school level, we have the 9 members in each category, and we are constituted from the Act of Parliament, Basic Education Act 2013. We have a population of 15 million children, both in primary and secondary school. Those are public schools. Our members are almost 12 million parents. slightly over 12 million parents are members of the National Parents Association. Who want to be a member, you must admit a child in a public school. And by admitting a child in such a school, you are automatic member of the National Parents Association. We actually speak on behalf of the parents. We advocate for their rights, the challenges the children are going through. We also motivate teachers, and we speak on behalf of every even the special needs children, special needs parents. We also have members in every committee. So we have one member who has a physical challenge, or if we don't have a parent with disability, we will also look for a parent who has a child.
Nicholas, unfortunately, there's your line is not clear. I'd like us to call you back, and then we can continue this conversation. But in the meantime, Peter, you've heard the outcry out there because of what's happening. Parents are saying that they've received invoices for second term or for some continued education from their schools, and they're wondering, so why are we receiving these invoices? Is the school opening? Is it not?
Thank you very much, Eric. And I want to, just for the purposes of clarification, to indicate that to the best of our knowledge as Kenya Private Schools Association, the schools were shut on the 15th of March 2020 because of the coronavirus outbreak in the country. Meaning that we had not completed covering the first term content as required by the curriculum designs developed by the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. We had 3 weeks to complete first term. So as we speak, we are not on holiday for after the first term. We are still on a break caused by the pandemic. So we haven't started, and we even don't know when second term will begin. So for us to say that the second term is beginning on 4th of May or whatever, that is neither here nor there. Because to the best of my knowledge, when the resumption of normal studies is called by the Cabinet Secretary for the Ministry of Education, we will start from where we left. We cover the 3 weeks that had remained, cover that content, and then start the second term.
All right.
At the moment, the only obligation that we expect parents to do is that those parents who had paid their school fees for first term, that will still suffice when schools resume unless something else happens in between. Those who had not cleared their fees for first term will be required to pay the balance that they had not paid for first term. Then from there, we will begin with second term when it starts.
Okay. Is this something that is clear to all schools within the association and those who are under the umbrella of Kenya Private Schools?
This is very clear to all members of the Kenya Private Schools Association. That is very clear.
So why is why is it then that you have some schools who are already invoicing and demanding payment as from the 4th of May for the second term?
Now, unless, because I'm personally not aware, but just in case any private schools have an arrangement with parents for advance payment, then that is a totally different arrangement.
Okay, maybe I can make it clear so that maybe you can now say what needs to be done in this case. There are a number of schools, and maybe that also needs to be presented to you, but there are a number of schools who have made it clear that this is for the second term. The payment is demanded as from the 4th of May, and after that, they're saying the lessons that will be carried out for second term will be carried out online, up to 7 classes per day.
I want to make it clear, and I want to repeat it again, that from where I sit, and to the best of Kenya Private Schools Association, second term has not begun. And therefore, it will not be right for me to say that fees for second term has to be paid from the 4th of May. Because second term has not begun. In fact, what is happening between now and second term, this is a program that is totally out of the normal academic calendar. We do not have first term or second term going on or starting anytime soon because that pronouncement has not been made. So any program that is going on now is a program that is totally out of the ordinary normal school term. And therefore, to ask parents to pay school fees for second term that is starting on May, that, as per the association, is not right. It is not right. But if there are arrangements where schools are asking parents to pay their school fees in advance, that is not a problem. Because even other organizations tell their parents or clients or customers to pay in advance, which is acceptable. If that is the request that the schools are making, that you can pay your school fees in advance, there are those who pay their fees well in advance. And you encourage them to do that. Because at the end of the day, schools will still resume. Children will still go back. So if parents pay in advance, there's no problem. But we are not asking for school fees for second term because we do not know when second term will begin as we speak.
Nicholas is back on the line. Nicholas Mayo, the chairman of the Kenya National Parents Association. Have you heard complaints, Nicholas, from your member parents who are saying that they are being asked to pay school fees during this period?
Not really. In fact, the complaint I had first was what will happen to the school fees that they are paid during the first term. Because they were saying that now that we wasted 3 weeks without learning, what will happen to that money that we paid in the first term. And we told them as an association that we are engaging with the ministry and we will come back to them after we've agreed. And our agreement is that for every week elected, it will be carried forward. Now we know about 3 weeks when the president placed in because of the corona. And these are the 4 weeks when the minister also said the government has postponed the opening to maybe after June. So we now have 7 weeks. These 7 weeks, the money in that 7 weeks will be carried forward.
So, and this is all in the public schools?
Yeah, all public schools, all parents who have children in public schools will not incur any more expense.
Okay.
That is, like, I have my son in Nairobi school, and I pay 4,500. That is for the whole year. And for the whole year for us is 14 weeks. So we pay fees as per week. Now we'll minus 7 weeks. What I'm supposed to pay this year will be only 27,000, half of the full amount. Because I paid full amount, so my money now will be transferred to be carried forward to 2021.
All right.
And I to all the parents.
Peter, is this something that also the private schools have considered?
You know, for us, we are not looking at issues of how much money was paid and how much has not been paid. What we are looking at is, have we covered what we're supposed to have covered for first term? And the answer is, we had not covered what we're supposed to have covered. That is 3 weeks that still remained uncovered.
Yes.
And therefore, when we resume, we'll have to cover that period because that content has to be covered. When we start second term, of course, there is a period within which we're supposed to cover second term. If the ministry, in its own wisdom, decides to reduce that period, then we will look at what needs to be done within that reduced period. But I want to believe, as a country, we would not want to do anything that will compromise on the quality of education in our country, because we want to make sure that our education system is well on track, is quality assured, and we do not lose anything, especially for our children. So we want to say that for us, issues of how much we paid or how much is supposed to be paid at this point in time is neither here nor there. What we know is that school fee structure for the whole year had been issued to parents last year, and they know what they're supposed to pay for first term, what's supposed to be paid for second term, and what's supposed to be paid for third term. So in case there's anything that may deviate from the normal school term, then we are going to address that as we move along. But at the moment, we are looking at covering what has not been covered because of the break emanating from this pandemic.
Peter, I noticed that you're answering this question from the point of the content to be delivered in the syllabus.
Yes.
And I'm sure you have a reason for this. But the question that I'm asking specifically is with regards to the money paid. I know you're saying it's neither here nor there, but it is here. Right? Because it's money that parents have already paid for a term. The term where it was cut short by 3 weeks. And you're looking at when you resume, is this going to be carried forward? Like Nicholas is saying, this has already been addressed clearly on public education and public schools. They've said the fees that you paid carries forward for another 3 weeks.
I think I had addressed that particular issue, and I said fees for first term was X amount. If a parent had completed paying fees for first term, when schools resume to complete the syllabus, they will not be asked for any more money for first term because they had already completed their school fees for first term.
All right.
Right.
In the event that a parent had not completed fees for first term, they will be requested to complete the fees so that we can be able to complete the term as required. So that's why I'm saying the issue of school fees about transferring it, taking I don't know where, doing what is neither here nor there. What is there is fees for first term, for example, was 10,000. If a parent had paid 10,000, when we resume to complete first term, they'll not be asked for extra fees unless something else comes up. But if a parent had paid 5,000 and remained with a balance of 5,000, we will request that the parent pays 5,000 so that we can complete the term. So the issue of paying for school fees at this point in time is, as I've said, not here nor there, because we know that we're supposed to have completed the number of weeks required. We still had 3 weeks to cover, and that must be covered. As private schools, we will make sure that we deliver on that, because that was part of the contract with parents, and the parents also have to meet their obligations when schools resume for that period that remained uncovered. Then for second term, we look at what the Ministry of Education prescribes. If, for example, the Ministry of Education says that second term will have more weeks than originally planned, we'll have to make adjustments. If the number of weeks will be reduced, again, we'll also have to look at considerations. What can be removed here? What can be added here? What can be done? You know? That's why I'm saying the issue of fees at this point in time is not here nor there. But what we want to focus on is content coverage and ensuring that we have quality education for our children.
I understand this, Peter, but for a lot of parents, it is here or there, because there are some schools that are making this demand of parents to pay the fees. So in this case, what would you suggest that those schools who are making these demands of parents at this time, what would you suggest that they do? Hold their children back from this online learning that is being requested, not pay the fees, take it, write a letter of application? What would you suggest that they do, or just completely ignore the demand?
No. You know, I want this to be very clear that this period we are in at this point in time, I don't know how we can classify it. It is unprecedented. We've never been here before. Even the Basic Education Act is unable to define this particular period. So there are certain schools that have decided, okay, fine, what we're going to do is to engage learners in an activity that will make sure that they continue learning, they don't forget what they have been taught, they are getting supplementary material and all that. And this program that is outside the normal curriculum, probably a cost has to be incurred, the teachers have to be involved. There is development of content, online content, which requires money. There is the use of internet and very many other facilities that may be required, devices and all that. So it may be costed by the schools, and that will depend on the individual schools and how they want to go about it, together with the parents. And my taking is that the schools will have to engage the parents and see how best they can be able to provide this facility. But this program is not part of the normal academic programs
That
as
is
prescribed in the normal academic calendar.
Peter, that
So
is very
private
clear.
schools-
Now, I have to ask again. That is very clear. What you've said is clear. These same schools who have thought it best to say that we want to engage children, etc., call it whatever you want to call it, holiday tuition, whatever, give it a label.
Support.
They are labeling it second term. Now, from what you're saying, I hear that they then should not be doing that. And what I'm asking is then, what recourse should parents take to make sure that they either reject this or have an option for which they either pay or not pay if they don't want their children to be involved in this holiday tuition, which I'm just going to go ahead and call it that. What should they do? Because they've been presented with invoices, and they've been presented with these invoices labeled as second term. I'm telling you what is actually happening.
Maybe let's make it a little simpler and explain. You see, a lot of the things that we're hearing didn't begin with COVID. It's just a carryover. COVID is simply just making it more transparent because this conversation on COVID has captured the imagination of every Kenyan. So if you are talking about how bodies that help manage our school programs in the country, and then the matter of issue comes in, the matter of money comes in, you have now touched on a much larger discussion. Because prior to this, we're talking about how government manages its budget, specifically how it's been managing its budget with regards to COVID-19. Now, unless there's absolute clarity, you will be lumped with the people who ensure that this transparency is obfuscated. So that's why we are asking, make it clearer so that a simple person can understand what it is that's going on.
Again, I don't know what to, but let me be very clear on this. And I think I'll be repeating myself the fourth time, or is it, I don't know which
For
number
the
of times.
umpteenth time.
Yes, but I want to say this. Private Schools Association does not know when second term will begin. The Cabinet Secretary has said that opening has been suspended by 30 days, and within which period the Ministry of Education is going to look at the unfolding events in as far as the pandemic is concerned and further advise whether we are going to open after 30 days or something else, or again we're going to have another postponement. So the issue of second term starting on 4th of May is not there.
So parents can ignore those things that have come forth. Can you go ahead and say that? Anything that can come forth. So anything that comes with May 4th attached to fees for second term, can that be ignored?
Second term is not starting on 4th
so
of May.
So it can be ignored.
That is what I'm saying with a lot of certainty, that 4th of May is not second term. Second term is yet. The beginning of second term is yet to be announced by the Ministry of Education.
I get you. I think you're
all right,
being very
that's clear. All right.
The issue here is let's not even have this conversation between schools, parents. The invoice being sent is erroneous.
You know, the invoices, unless we are sending the fee structures and asking parents to pay in advance, that should not be a problem.
Yeah.
But sending an invoice for second term that is to start on 4th is not correct.
Okay,
yes,
there we go.
That's not right.
Okay.
Yes, that is not correct.
Okay.
But sending an invoice for parents to pay in advance or a fee structure telling them to start paying their fees in advance, that should not be a problem.
Okay.
But anything that probably, for example, online learning that we have, that the schools have decided to put in place, of course, there is a cost, and the schools will have to agree with the parents on how to cost that. And again, I also want you to differentiate between the local curriculum and the international curriculum. The international curriculum schools have their curriculum defined by international organizations or other countries.
The bodies they're affiliated to.
Yes, and those ones, their curriculum is ongoing, and now they're doing it online. So for them, a new term may be beginning anytime. I'm not aware when their new term begins, because that is not controlled in Kenya. It is controlled by other foreign bodies.
Yeah.
So at this point in time, For the international schools, they may have a different arrangement where they may say our first term or third term or whichever term begins next week. We have no control over that. And therefore, education has to go on, right? Those are for the international schools. But for the local curriculum schools, the ones we're talking about 844, in fact, I'll be shocked to see or hear a school that is 844 saying that they're opening for second term on 4th.
So let me ask you a question here. Is it the curriculum or is it the preparedness? Because the so-called national curriculum is going on because they have online learning. It means they didn't start with COVID, they've always had it. Our 844 system doesn't have the same preparedness, would you not say?
You know, for the international curriculum, they had started online learning a while back, unlike the local curriculum where we started it big time during the digital literacy program, but we slowed it down.
We actually don't have it. It's a patchwork.
We started something. We can't say that we don't have it. We started something.
If the entire student population who have in the 844 system cannot access it, we don't have it.
Yes, but we can't say we can't access it. It's only that we were not prepared for it, but we have it.
Okay.
We have something that is going on, but we haven't been able to fully actualize it and making sure that every child is able to benefit from it. We haven't been able to do that. So for the international curriculum, their curriculum, as I've said, is ongoing. And at this point in time, the children are not learning from school. They are learning from home, right? And that's why even when people are talking about school fees discounts, the international schools are the ones discussing about discounts because now children are not going to school, are learning from home. There is no transport cost, there is no boarding costs, there is no meals, there is no nothing. Electricity consumption has gone down. So that's why they are talking about discounts, right? Because they are in normal session, only that it is happening online and at home. But for the 844 curriculum, we are not proceeding with the syllabus coverage. We are at a standstill. We are not covering any syllabus.
Peter, final question to you. Are you engaged with the Ministry of Education in discussions on what happens next or what should be happening now?
Yes, indeed. In fact, we want to appreciate the Ministry of Education has engaged the Kenya Private Schools Association on a number of issues. And in fact, we are one of the major players and stakeholders in the discussion about what needs to be done, issues of the term dates, the calendar dates. We represent private schools in all the major sectors and education caucuses to give the perspective of the private schools. So at the moment, we are engaged and we don't have any reason to doubt that we'll continue being engaged by the Ministry of Education. We appreciate the
We'll
support
shortly be speaking to Musalia Mudavadi, the leader of ANC. And among the questions that Musalia has raised is demanding clarity and clarification from the ministry. And now we understand that you're sitting in those meetings, so we can also start by asking this of you. Why is there no clarity on a number of factors? One, this date of closing and opening. Secondly, on the issue of exams. Should exams be held this year or should they be postponed? Why not just come out clearly and say from the very beginning?
Now, beginning with the issue of clarity on the term dates, I think it will be very unfair for us to demand that the Ministry of Education gives us a date when we're going to open, yet we don't know how the issue of the COVID-19 is going to turn out. We are being told probably we haven't reached the peak yet. We are just at the initial stages. There are very many other things that the Ministry of Education cannot really say we are starting our second term on June 4th.
Sir, you're sounding like an apologist for the Ministry of Education. We are raising these questions because the ministry is not giving us answers to questions that had previously been asked. It is indeed their job to determine these things. All they do is making blanket statements without details. That's what we're saying. Give details. If they give details, all these many questions that we're asking, we will not ask.
My good friend, let me tell you, the issue of COVID-19, we do not know how it will turn out. Unless you tell me the COVID-19 will end on 15th of May, then the Ministry of Education will have no choice but to determine when the school's calendar will begin. But because we don't know how this COVID-19 is going to behave, then of course the Ministry of Education cannot with certainty say that this is what is happening. In addition, the Ministry of Education has gone further to say it has suspended the opening of schools from 5th of May by 30 days. I don't know whether that is uncertain.
It's inadequate. They should say what they are planning to do for those 30 days and give us an indication of what to expect, because we are uncertain of COVID.
I fail to understand your question, because if it's about opening the schools, because at the moment the Ministry of Education is trying to develop the back-to-school protocol after the COVID-19. That is what is being discussed among the stakeholders, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Health, and the team that was set up by the President to address the issues of the coronavirus pandemic. That is what is being developed as we speak. The issue of national examinations, and the Cabinet Secretary said, when that time comes, the Ministry of Education will ensure that everything that is supposed to have been covered by the candidates before they sit for exams, they'll have to be given that time to cover. So if we are going to go back on 4th of June, we'll look at between 4th of June and the time KCPE is due. Will the children be able to cover what they're supposed to have covered? KCAC, the same thing. So if the answer is no, then reorganization will be necessary. If the answer is yes, then we'll proceed with the exams. And that's why we are saying, at the moment, you can't say, this is exactly what will happen. On this date, we are going to do this. On this date, there are very many other things that must be considered.
Many variables.
And I think the Ministry of Education so far has done its best. It has provided online learning. It is pushing material through radio, through TV, through the online platforms. And so far, it is doing a pretty good job. It's not that I'm just saying this because I just want to be an apologist, but I'm saying what is on the ground and what is a fact. The Ministry of Education has tried, and under the circumstances, there are very few things that they can be able to do to say with certainty. Yeah.
Peter Ndoro, the CEO of the Kenya Private Schools Association, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
And have a good day.
You too. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much, Peter. Wow. Okay. Inbound on Thika Road today, there's a problem, guys. I don't know where exactly it's all stemming from, but we're trying to watch that and hope that you'll be able to get off. Outbound, it doesn't seem to be much of a problem. On Mombasa Road, we still have the issue right around the SGR coming away from the Gateway Mall. There's still a bit of a hold up there. After General Motors, though, is fine. So that hiccup seems to be there. You should be able to get out of it soon enough. Everywhere else in the city looks pretty good, and in the country as well. Unless something does pop up, let us know. Spice FMKE is how you can reach us on Twitter. But for now, it looks all right, apart from those little trouble spots. But those should clear up in a short bit.
Any invoice that's being sent and indicating that this is for second term that begins on this date is erroneous, and that should just be ignored, okay? But, and this is what Peter said, schools that are coming up with programs on how to offer support tutoring online can discuss this with their parents. And I think this is where the issue of schools like Riera, which are already running this kind of programs, are coming in. They're saying, all right, so we'd like to offer support on what you've already learned so far, and we are putting it on an online platform, and this is how much it's going to cost us to offer this program to you. And anybody who either is a student of Riera or not a student of Riera can participate in this.
That's what the communication should be.
Clear.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's the problem, though.
No one is blind or deaf to the reality of COVID. It's clarity around it. Whether it's from the ministry. The ministry says one thing, we say, okay, we've heard you.
Mm-hmm.
And then? Because it's hanging. We have extended the holidays. Good statement. Hanging. Students are supposed to be learning. You're working on it. all this time when you've been in silence, what on earth have you been doing? Should you not have been working on this thing? And then we know the curriculum development arm of the ministry has something that they've worked on for the longest time and they have it. So it's a question of moving it out. That's what the problem is. Not that it hasn't been worked on. These fellows do their work. Man, they know what to do. So you have a situation where there's lack of clarity. Not lack of product. We have product. Clarity around it and what we need to do with it.
I think the difficulty that the Ministry of Education has is in sanctioning that rollout of a product, knowing full well that there's a huge inequality in terms of infrastructure and access. So you can't say, offer this product online, knowing that a huge majority are not going to be able to access this. You also can't say, offer this program on radio, knowing full well that not even everybody is going to be able to access it on radio. And it's not going to be of good quality. So you cannot say, let's continue with the curriculum from where you left and offer it on radio. You can't do that on syllabus.
No, you cannot. But there is, what do we offer to whom? So that uniformity is there in terms of what they receive. That is what you are saying. When we have exams during the rainy season and for the longest time, exams have been taken to those areas by helicopter. Not every area in this country receives exams by helicopter. Just normal means. Why? Somebody has thought and said, we have a problem here and these guys have to do the exam. So what do? We use something that will guarantee that they get. Eric, this used to be a problem before you had regional radio stations that were available. You have small radio stations in all over the country. They don't broadcast countrywide. You have other means of transmitting information.
You have community radio.
Where have you shown us that these are the community radios we have in the country, and this way we don't have them? So those who have community radio, this is what we do. Those who don't have community radio, this is what we do. It's not that the solutions aren't there. You can't have in such a situation one patent solution for everybody. No. The end will be the same, but the means of ensuring you achieve it will be different. It's communication, man. The thing we've established in this country is we do not lack for what to do and we do not lack for knowing what to do. That we don't lack. We get stuck when we get there. The implementation phase. Then everything now takes precedence and everybody has an idea, whether it's a completely wacko idea or whether it's something that has never worked and will never work on any planet. But there you have it. It's not that the solutions aren't there. The solutions are there.
Okay.
It's a tough one, isn't it, this one? It's actually not...
You shared with us, was it the day before yesterday, what Rwanda is doing?
I did.
And what is Rwanda doing?
Rwanda is using every TV station they have. They have even divided up the lessons according to TV stations. All TV stations, not one, all. There are 12 of them, all. And you're told it's normal classes. From this time to this time, this subject on this TV station. From this time to this time. Now what the TV stations have done is that they have made those frequencies available. And with the TV, you can then figure out, okay, not everybody has a TV, but is there a hall where people can watch this and you can amplify the sounds? Meaning, they found a solution. Now they'll tweak it to suit the the available variables of learning that they have in the country. But TV stations, all. It follows that even radio stations will fall in. All lessons you occupied the normal time that you'd be occupied in school.
So basically you're saying that you go to a private media broadcaster and you tell the broadcaster, stop everything you're doing, you're going to be offering education.
That's why it's divided. From morning, this subject to this subject is
we
on
demand
this station.
X amount of time out of your airtime per day.
That is what we demand. This is a problem we have in the country. These students must learn. This is what we're doing.
Do you see that working in this country? So you come and tell KTN, so from this time to this time, forget all your programming. You're going to be running KICD program.
I don't see that happening.
From 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. or from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m.
But I think we also have to look at the fact that Rwanda probably, even with the education system, they were prepared for an alternative. And they had put something in place that would then easily or seamlessly be then worked into the system. And that is evident by the fact that they're able to then go from one spot to the next without a problem means that they had an alternate in place. And that everybody was in line and everybody was towing the same line to make sure that something would work. That's why it would be easy for you to make the announcement and then you have people flowing with it very easily.
Look, when the government asks you to contribute to this COVID-19 and you are a radio station, a TV station, you are going to sit and dither and tell the country, well, you're not going to. You're going to dither, even if you're in Kenya. They have time. Already, media houses were hemorrhaging because they didn't have advertisers. They have that 24 hours is still available. The equipment is still available. You're being told, look, this is a common good. These same media houses benefit from the government when it comes to advertising. There's a quid pro quo. We're now asking you, look, our children need to learn.
This is excuse me. This is the thing, though, CT. Even when I'm just reading here, even when Rwandan schools closed and said that closing schools, they also said that, however, education will not stop, and that's why it was easy for them to then now bring in this curriculum onto the TV stations and the radio stations and across the country, because it was understood and it was clear across the board that education is going to continue. Like here you say, all right, holidays will be extended.
And then?
Crickets.
And then let's leave the TV stations. Man,
somebody in Rwanda reading stories from Kenya would say the same thing, eh? In Kenya, what happened is after schools were closed, the Ministry of Education said education will not stop. And immediately, their Curriculum Development Institute rolled out a program and a timetable on how this is going to be accessible on radio and on TV. And as we know from other data, radio is the most widely consumed medium in Kenya. So there you go. It's
Eric, the same story.
It's about how it's reported.
We know, no, it's not how it's reported, Eric.
And whether it's practical on the ground.
Eric, we know what to do. We have more radio stations than Rwanda has. In fact, we have really many radio stations, community, what have you.
Private.
It doesn't have to be TV. It is a medium that people can access. So we do have an avenue to put across what our curriculum development sector has done. Same problem. We have a solution. We have the means. Actioning it.
It's been rolled out. The KICD program, you've even talked about this many times,
Eric, has it been rolled out to everybody?
It's accessible on radio. Is radio available to everybody? Of course not.
Eric, rolling it out means it's part of a government program, like the government feeding program, where you are sure everybody has it. I'm asking the question, is everybody accessing it? And are we ensuring that they access it? If they're not, no learning is taking place.
No learning is taking place. I think at the end of the day, what we're trying to seek here is clarity in terms of what. I'm glad that we did get some clarity. Peter Ndoro was able to share that with us today. Some clarity in terms of what is happening, because we can't ignore the fact that there are certain schools right now who are clearly going against the grain. And the grain in this case is not something that you can or cannot do. Going against the grain, meaning that the Authority for Education, which is vested in the Ministry of Education, has said, look, as far as the national system is concerned, we are on holiday. There's no teaching that's going to be done. And then by virtue of that, it means that you will then not invoice because you've not even finished first term. And the assumption is that everybody has already paid for first term. When we come back, we will finish first term, according to what the minister has said. There it is clear. Anybody who wants to do anything else then is operating outside the lines of the Ministry of Education. And then we're not talking about international schools. If there's a fight there in terms of what online learning is taking place, the fight then should be then, are we sharing this cost that you're giving to us at this point? Because there's a bulk of the work that parents then have to do from home. We also have to do the work. So why pay the full amount? That's where the fight is. So I think there's so many things that will get convoluted if we're not separating issues. Right?
Kenyans are not very good at separating issues as well.
This needs to happen. It is necessary for that to happen in this case.
Even from the point of parents, I think it's important that parents also sit back and ask themselves, so what do I understand, first of all? What information do I have access to? And what is this that I'm seeing? So when a parent receives an invoice, and this invoice is talking about this is in, because for the second term, and it's saying this is for the second term, have you called the school and asked the school, all right, so schools have been given a 30-day extension of the period of the holiday. Are you asking me to pay in advance for whenever schools are going to open, or are you asking me to pay for next week? And what's going to happen next week? What we see a lot of us doing as Kenyans is we immediately go into our groups and start saying, have you seen what they're doing? They've sent me an invoice. And then we start blaming it upwards and saying this school is demanding money from me, this school is, and the ministry, what role do we have to play in terms of
Eric, there's
getting information?
There's a fundamental difference here. Radio is not visual. Okay? Where TV comes in handy, it is a good supplement for actual classroom teaching because you can see what is happening. Okay? There are things that will point us to what we haven't done or couldn't do or unable to do and we need to do. COVID does that for you. There is the resources that we already have and what we can use them and the versatility we can employ in using them, there's that. And then there's the knowledge that some parts of our country simply don't have these facilities at all. So now these are separate realities that we must face and address. But the underlying factor is the students must learn. The learning must not be interrupted. So you work around this. Another truth, man, we have people in these ministries who know exactly what, I keep repeating this because I know. They know exactly what to do. They even know how to do it. But that usual elephant that actually blocks the windows and the doors comes into place when you get to that place. And then we're running around chasing our tails, discussing things we shouldn't be discussing because we have the resources. We even have the wherewithal to try and fit in with what we have. We do.
Kimutai calling in from Eldoret. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What my point is,
yes,
this is Kenya, and according to the education system, we are paying for the bread, but we are given a matchbox, meaning it doesn't give us any value for our money.
Explain that.
That's all I have to say, because these guys want us to pay full fee when we are seated at home educating the kids. I was not good in mathematics. My son asks me, what should I tell him? That's the reason why I say we are paying much for what we are getting in less amount. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimutai. Zachary Nakuru.
Oh, hi guys.
Hi, Zachary.
Now I'm okay, Malim. Do there.
Oh, yeah, hi.
I'm sure that one of these days you are going to take me to Nigeria after COVID.
After COVID? Anything is possible after COVID, Zachary.
I miss the Nigerian rural life.
Okay.
Yeah. No, now,
Yep.
Let me tell you this, guys. Immediately after your program, I switch on to a radio station that is pushing on those KCD programs, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Let me inform you and any other person who may be interested to know. I'm surrounded by kids of various grades.
Mm-hmm.
And they always complain, why are you switching from the music station to and I tell them, these programs are meant for you, not for me. And they tell me, oh, hang on there, you old man, what are you telling us? So let me tell you this, that first of all, I do not know why there is all this about education, security. Most of us, relative are educated. And the old adage that education is the key, it has been replaced by, they say that there's something person came and put the rock that if you do not have influence, or the godfather, your education may be useless at the end of the day. Okay?
Yeah.
And it is bad that we have slipped into that situation because education is a right to every child and every human being. Yeah,
it's true. Zachary, I'd like to interrupt you a bit so that we can bring in opposition leader Musalia Mudavadi, the leader of the ANC. Good morning, Mheshimiwa.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Mheshimiwa.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us again in the Situation Room.
Right.
We've been discussing the issue of education, clarity on what happens next, what happens now that we have COVID-19, schools were ordered closed, students sent home. Now, opening of for a new term has been pushed by another 30 days. The issue of exams keep cropping up. Yesterday, you addressed a media conference on this and you raised a couple of issues.
Yes.
Maybe you could quickly just give us a summary of what issues that you were raising yesterday.
Fine. First of all, I was pointing out that the Ministry of Education needs to come out with more clarity because we've been getting tidbits of messages from them, and they're not definitive enough. Some are speculative that the exams may be on or may not be. This is not the kind of communication you have here. Secondly, it's clear that there's going to be a lot of problems in covering the syllabus, and the exam system here is based on syllabuses. So going by where we are now, there has been major interruption. And when you talk to a lot of professionals, they don't see how they're likely to cover the lost time. And this is something that needs to bring the stakeholders together. So my view is that the Ministry of Education should be more proactive and more transparent to the Kenyan people, so that we can know that there's serious consultation taking place with the teachers, the parents' associations,
and the school heads,
the school heads, the Kenya Examination Council, so that we can see what we would say a consultative and well thought out process on the way out of it. But it seems that not coming out clearly.
Right. I mean, it's clear, Mheshimiwa, that it's not coming out clearly from them. In this case, what we've been told is that they actually don't know. Are we looking for them to come out and say no exams this year? Are we looking for them to say that regardless of what we see, there will be exams in December 2020? Do we want them to make a statement on something that they don't have much information for at the moment?
I think on a matter like this, confidence comes through when people see that there's a measure of consultation and that a common solution is being found. Because ordinarily the exams are in November. So are they going to be pushed into December? As an example. If the schools resume in June, what does that do to the calendar of the school? Do they then forgo the holidays in August? Then they study during the August period, which is another 3-week period. But from where we sit, if you observe the calendar, they seem to have lost 7 weeks. So these are issues that the experts should sit together. This cannot be decisions made in isolation. They must have a consultative process, and they are experts in education. Does it mean that you alter the calendar of the school, maybe for it to start in September? And therefore they'll have lost a few months, but at least they have not lost the entire year. So these are clarity issues that need to come out because they affect transition.
And also they build confidence on the people.
And they build confidence, yes. And even the students are owed something here. Because there are 1.2 million Standard 8 children.
Mheshimiwa, I'm not going to ask you...
700,000 secondary school candidates.
I'm not going to ask you what you would do if you were the Minister for Education. You're above that. If you are the President, you're the head of this country, and you have this issue ongoing today, what would you want to see done so that you can answer all these questions that you're raising?
I think what is clear is that there's some element that seems to show that everything is revolving around the Ministry of Health. And to some certain extent, yes, a lot of issues depend on them. But serious consultation amongst themselves is important because, for instance, if I give the example of the Foreign Affairs Ministry, until Kenyans smoked them out, they were not being proactive in explaining or even showing any empathy with Kenyans who are facing difficulties outside. They had to be smoked out. Now, we would like the Ministry of Education, for instance, if you reopen in June and the school is hit by the COVID, what kind of preparations have been made to be able to mitigate that? Would it mean that if Lenana open in June, and it has been, I think, one of the quarantine centers, and COVID hits that school, do you close it? And then what happens to the fate of those children who are supposed to take exams in Lenana? Would they be transferred to another examination center?
So, just if, as we conclude the conversation, if you were to give me 3 things that you think need to be done specifically? And this is just now being very prescriptive to Professor George Magoha. What 3 things would you like to see done so that all these questions, all this uncertainty is cleared?
I think what is clear and the most important thing, and that will have to deal with the other issues, I can only have one message. Get the stakeholders, the primary or key stakeholders, to dialogue on this issue. Yeah.
If I were to ask this yes or no question, do you think within the country we have adequate resources to actually find solutions to all these problems we are raising?
No country has sufficient resources to deal with a crisis like this. So it is a question of putting great minds together in various professional segments, and then getting them to think through and help the Kenyans navigate through this crisis to the best of their ability. Because it is, we may have had some possible good news that perhaps there's a drug that can now slow down the coronavirus issues. But you notice that the medicine man, the experts were saying that it's not yet a vaccine.
Yeah.
So we have to anticipate that we may be with the coronavirus a little longer. And this is now when I would be appealing for our best brain to engage in serious consultative measures so that we are not working in silos. Yeah.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Musalia Mudavadi, the leader of ANC party, for speaking to us. You know, as we come to the conclusion of the show, C.T. Muga always has a day's proverb. So listen to today's proverb.
Okay.
If your only tool is a hammer, you will always see every problem as a nail.
Yes. I get you.
How would you put that in context, Mheshimiwa?
Well, I think what he's saying is that let's think out of the box.
Yes.
Let's not look at it as simply a nail and hammer solution.
Right.
Indeed.
There are other solutions.
Very well put. Very well put.
We are happy to have tickled your funny bone, Mheshimiwa.
Have a good day.
Thanks very much, Mheshimiwa.
Asante.
And thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room today, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Join us again tomorrow, same time. Between now and 2 o'clock, uninterrupted music, sugar and spice, everything nice. And then 2 to 6, Monique will be here to take you home on Spice Drive. And thereafter, the adults in the room. This week, it's Eric and Barbara. Good morning.